How many stories have you heard or personally experienced of people being ostracised and disowned by their own friends and family members for their political opinions? Listen to what this young mother told me. I had to get a restraining order against my parents when I became a conservative Christian. At the time I was pregnant and my parents were threatening violence and to take custody of my unborn child. Ashton Whitty. Since coming out conservative, I've been exiled by my own family, watched my dreams of acting be destroyed, spent several nights homeless, and have found myself more anxious and depressed than ever. This ex-Marine told me. My entire family, including cousins, won't talk to me anymore. 2 of my sisters on their deathbed would not let me come and make amends with them before they died, and the family wouldn't let me attend their funerals. They took that anger to the grave. Candy O'Donnell told me sister-in-law and her family have refused to join Thanksgiving dinner for 2 years now because we voted for Trump. Now, I'm not saying this is all one way. There are liberals who live in conservative areas who have been excommunicated by their families, and that's equally as bad. There was a Miami Dolphins cheerleader who divorced her husband because he didn't support Trump. That's absurd. But aside from this, since Brexit and Trump, from anecdotal evidence alone, it seems like it's pretty much a one-way street. My brother has disowned my whole family because we didn't vote for Hillary. He moved and no one has spoken to him in 2 years. I have one brother. I was disinvited from his SJW daughter's wedding at her request. Fired from public university position, losing my marriage, shunned by friends and so-called fellow travellers in various social circles and networks. And this was a woman who voted for Obama twice before she voted for Trump. This is a grandma whose own daughter disowned and blocked her for supporting Trump. Presently, although I am allowed to send my grandchildren gifts and cards, I am not allowed to talk to them or be a part of their lives. I am held at arm's length and can only pray her views will mellow or change. Breaks my heart. A young mother sent me this. My family no longer wish to speak to me as I research my own news and not just listen to what the MSM wants me to think. I research the facts for myself. Due to this, my whole family will no longer speak to me. The worst thing about this is they will now no longer talk to my daughter, who is 3. She has no knowledge or understanding of politics, so why they use my own views against her is ridiculous. I've encouraged them to have contact with her, to which they refuse. It's a sad, sad story. And you know who's mostly to blame for all this? Yeah, you guessed it, the media. The same media that constantly smears conservatives as hateful and divisive, while promulgating endless hate and division. Harper's Bazaar. If you're married to a Trump supporter, divorce them. Time magazine. Break up with that Trump supporter. GQ. It's your civic duty to ruin Thanksgiving by bringing up Trump. These people are so vulgar, so perverse, so resentful. They're quite prepared to see families torn apart just so they can exact some kind of petty revenge, which doesn't even matter anyway. The last year plus has just been a media feeding frenzy of character assassinations, frivolous lawsuits and censorship aimed at conservatives. All because they were butthurt at losing a referendum, at losing an election. But not content with sabotaging people's reputation and careers, they're now coming after people's families. Pamela Geller has a fatwa out on her from Islamic terrorists. They've threatened to behead her. They've threatened to kill her family. Then the Daily Beast exposes Geller's daughters, who aren't even political, painting a target on their backs for jihadists, simply because they don't like Geller's views on Islam. The writer of this vile trash, Taylor Lorenz, then celebrates what she did all over Twitter. I mean, what kind of vicious, subhuman scum could do such a thing and then think they had the moral high ground in doing it? You don't have the moral high ground. You're literally exposing innocent young women who aren't even engaged in politics to the threat of being assassinated by bloodthirsty Islamic terrorists. And for what? Because you think it'll silence Pamela Geller? You're prepared to go to such disgusting lengths for a scoop. Shame on you. Shame on all of you who think traumatizing and disowning your own friends and family members because they dare hold a different political opinion is somehow worth it for the greater good. There is no greater good. You're a horrible person. Take a long look in the frigging mirror. Newsflash. You know all that righteous indignation you feel about everything? Yeah, well, we feel that too. Difference is, we don't lash out and hurt people's relationships and target their families. You're slowly ripping apart the fabric of society. You're making sons, daughters, mothers, fathers miserable, sometimes suicidal. You're ruining lives. For what? Just so you can virtue signal about it on Facebook and Twitter. This is the thing that pisses me off about you lot. Every day we have to put up with your relentless phony moralizing about how tolerant you are. Every day we have to hear about how humane you are, how caring you are, when you can't even be humane and tolerant to your own closest family members and friends. When you're quite prepared to make their lives a living hell just to score political points. It's shameful. It has to stop. Look, you can change the political environment by educating, by protesting, by voting. You can't change it by disowning your own children. I get messages every day from kids who are in school or college who are being bullied by their classmates, by their teachers, for their political opinions. They're telling me I'm their hero. No, you're my hero. You're my inspiration. You're the reason why I do this. I've been an outcast since the age of 12. I love what I do. All the hate, all the ostracization, all the lies about me, doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm never gonna stop. I'm never gonna shut up. But when they start coming for people's children, young women, who aren't even involved in politics, you know it's gone too far. I want you to do two things. Share in the comments below your own experiences of how you've been ostracized and disowned over your political opinions. And also comment on what we can do to fix what has become an intolerable strain on society. And to the left, listen. Everyone you know and love is going to die. We all return to dust. How in the hell does it benefit anyone to cause such grief, heartache and acrimony over political opinions? This has to stop. We cannot go on like this.
Welcome back to the War Room. I'm Michael Zimmerman, joined by Ashton Whitty, filling in for Owen Schroyer today on this Friday, last day of the week that Alex is out of town. He'll be back on Monday, and Owen will return with the War Room. Joined by Ashton Whitty again, who joined us for our 34-hour broadcast last week and also this past Monday from Berkeley, California. One of the people mentioned in Paul Joseph Watson's video that we just played as someone who's been shunned by your family because of your political views. And so we'll be talking about some of those political views today.
Absolutely.
So one thing you were telling me you wanted to talk about is all these attacks on young conservatives from Vice and other outlets, whether it's saying that no one wants to date them, which we'll get into, or the going after the NRA for wanting women and black people armed.
It's really interesting because what's one of these articles actually?
There's one from Daily Wire.
Yeah. So Daily Wire wrote an article about how Vice wrote on Twitter saying the NRA wants nurses, school teachers, and women to be armed. And they really emphasized women, which I, of course, as a woman, should be offended by it, but I'm not because Vice is completely stupid. My thing is that why wouldn't you want your women to be armed? Why wouldn't you? Why is it in so many different Saudi Arabian countries, the men can be armed, the women can't? And so my question is, I understand that Vice doesn't want anyone to own guns, but why focus on women? They are so obsessed with saying how it's the white males that are the ones shooting up the place, but the reality is that guns are are going to empower women.
It's the great equalizer. And
absolutely.
Why would Vice, and another person or group they mentioned in that tweet was preachers. So even after we saw this shooting here at Sutherland Springs in Texas, they don't want preachers to own guns, which I can maybe understand the nightclub argument as someone who has my license to carry a handgun. I don't really want people in bars. I've seen how people in a lot of bars act. I don't necessarily know if a bar is a good place to mix with firearms, but
I think they meant bouncer.
I wouldn't have an issue with a bouncer or a bartender who's not drinking having a gun, but why would you be against preachers having guns? What stopped the shooting, or the person fleeing the shooting in Sutherland Springs, Texas, was a good guy with a gun. It was an NRA instructor that stopped that shooting. So they don't want preachers to have guns. They don't want women to have guns. So single mothers who, are at home alone by their children, with their children, who's supposed to protect them? If someone's kicking in their door, an abusive, ex-boyfriend, something like that, how is this woman going to protect herself and her children? Because Vice doesn't want her to own guns. The NRA does. The NRA wants people of every race, color, and creed to own firearms. But then these far left groups don't want that. Here's an article from The Advocate. Let's go. A former NRA instructor recalls chasing down and stopping Texas church shooter. It was a good guy with a gun, more specifically a good guy with an AR-15, which all the media has of late tried to demonize. You know, this one type of firearm.
Of course, and there's a report of a woman who was actually 18 years old. She was a single mother, and someone was breaking into her home, and she stopped him with her gun. She called 911 and said, "What should I do? Should I shoot the man who is breaking into my house?" The 911 person said that she has to do whatever she could to protect her baby. Now, if she were 21 or over, as people are advocating for right now, she couldn't protect her child. She would probably murder as well as her infant.
And you raised a good point there as far as wanting to raise the age. I'm very against it. I grew up shooting guns. I had my first gun probably when I was 15, 16 years old that my dad had bought for me. When I was 18, I went out and purchased my first rifle. When I was 21, I bought my first handguns. And now I have a collection of guns. But I don't think, you know, we should have people that can vote, they can join the military. You can enlist in the military at 17.
What I want to touch base on is this Bumble situation. It's on a dating app. Could I see the article really quick?
Sure.
So Vice says women shouldn't own guns. And Bumble, which is actually an app for women, started by women to make women feel more safe, is now saying pictures and statements about guns should be reported. So they don't want women to date men who can protect them? They don't want women to own guns, and they don't want women to date men who own guns.
So Bumble, to give people a little more background on it, is an app pretty similar to the app Tinder, where people swipe right or left. And then when you match with someone, the woman has to message the man first and, you know, initiate the conversation. But other than that, it's just a dating app where people are judging each other, you know, solely on appearances. But they notified their entire user base earlier this week that if you see someone with a gun, can we scroll down on this? They actually have the text that showed up. So when people opened the app, they said, "We're working to ban gun photos. We're asking for your help." And then they went on to say in the next images that they want people to actually file reports. If they see someone with a gun, they need to report them within the app so that their account will be banned. They said other than police or law enforcement in uniform, everyone with a photo of a gun on Bumble is going to be banned. My problem with this is guns are not illegal. Gun ownership is lawful.
Well, my biggest issue is these are the same people who claim to be feminists, right? So they don't want women to protect themselves, and they don't want women to be protected. What does that say about the society? Do they just don't want women to be treated with protection? I mean, what do they want women to do? Be treated as they are in Islamic countries where they're raped and mugged in the streets in broad daylight?
Exactly. And I'm sure other companies are going to follow suit. We saw a number of companies join this whole NRA boycott, which I should have printed this today, but Delta Airlines grandstanded about how we were going to get rid of our NRA discount. We're not going to provide a discount anymore for members of the NRA. Right. And then the state of Georgia took away an incentive that they had been giving Delta that cost them millions of dollars, cost their business millions of dollars in tax credits. Well, turns out there were only less than 20 tickets purchased through NRA's discount program with Delta in the history of the program. So each one of those tickets ended up costing Delta millions of dollars because they wanted to do this virtue signaling and say, no, we're not going to have any dealings with the NRA. There are millions of people who belong to the National Rifle Association. It is the largest advocacy group for one specific right in the country. You know, their focus is not widespread. You've got lots of these left groups, right-wing groups that are more broadly focused, but the NRA is focused solely on the Second Amendment and protecting the Second Amendment. So they made an enemy out of tens of millions of Americans, not hundreds of millions of Americans, and the state of Georgia. So Georgia Republicans honor their threat to punish Delta for cutting ties with the NRA. They said, well, if you're going to be political about how you run your business, we're not going to go out of our way to, you know, help your business. And then, of course, I think it was the governor of New York, he comes out and says, oh, you're welcome to come here. Like, well, they're not going to move their business there. Georgia has much better taxes for businesses than New York State does. But I think it's interesting what we see going on here. They're trying to make people feel lonely. They're trying to make it feel you're not welcome on this dating app. You know, there's a handful of dating apps out there. If you're someone who shoots guns, you're not welcome on this app. You know,
you're not welcome on this airline. You're not welcome at this sports store. that originally sold guns for many, many years.
Right, Dick's Sporting Goods. Oh, we won't sell to people anymore. There's actually a lawsuit that has been filed against Walmart and some other sporting goods retailer, but Walmart being the bigger one, for not selling him a gun because they said, oh, we're going to change our policy. Yeah, 20-year-old sues Dick's and Walmart over new gun policies. According to federal law, you have to be 18 years of age to purchase a firearm, to purchase a long gun, a rifle, and 21 years of age to purchase a handgun. Now, sure, these companies can say we're not going to sell a gun to someone, but they are FFL, federal firearm licensed dealers, like everyone who sells guns in this country. They perform background checks. So they're saying, even though under the law you're allowed to purchase this item, we're not going to sell it to you. So the issue with this court case is discrimination based on age. They targeted this 20-year-old. They said, well, we changed our policy. We're not going to sell guns to people under 21 now. Fortunately, there are plenty of other stores. So he walked into a Field & Stream, which is a subsidiary of Dick's, in Medford, Oregon on February 24th, intending to buy a .22 caliber rifle. He was told no based on the retailer's new policy. His lawsuit says, the suit says Dick's action amounts to age discrimination. And I would agree with that. It seems like a very clear case of discrimination by these companies, by these platforms, because they're targeting conservatives for things that are not against the law. It's not against the law to have guns in your photos. It's not against the law to take photos of your guns.
And it's certainly not illegal for a woman to own a gun, as it is in Islamic countries.
Exactly. And you got to ask, do they want no one armed? Which I think the answer is yes. They don't want anyone to have guns. And they're starting with, telling women, don't date men who have guns. Like we saw in the Watson video, bring it up at family, make a scene about Trump. So we'll be back on the other side of this break, breaking down more articles. Michael Zimmerman, joined by Ashton Whitty. You're watching The War Room. Welcome back to The War Room. I'm Michael Zimmerman, joined by Ashton Whitty. In the last segment, we were talking about different dating apps banning conservatives, different gun stores not selling guns to people under 21, even though they're lawfully allowed to own them. We've seen kind of these attacks coming from all these different angles. So what did you want to get into next with all this?
Vice wrote an article about conservative men, it says conservatives, not being able to get dates, which of course I look at it, and obviously they did not ask conservative women. So essentially this is what they said: conservatives are whining because no one wants to date them. It must be tough being a Republican when your party's president does things like, say, call African nations, shift whole countries, make bizarre phone calls to school shooting survivors, in which David Hogg hung up, so I don't know why that was bizarre. It's the president. Or back up accused domestic abusers and alleged child molesters like Hillary Clinton, for example. This is just, it really takes the cake because it even says in the article, a handful of conservatives in D.C. So a handful of conservatives in D.C., which is an extremely liberal area.
I think there's only a handful of conservatives in D.C. They may have talked to every single conservative there.
And obviously they only talk to women. They even say that in the article. Or I'm sorry, they don't talk to men. They don't talk to any women in the article. And my whole thing is that as a woman, I don't have issues with getting dates or guys wanting to date me. Maybe it is different for men. But my question to Vice is, it's not like men just walk into bars wearing Trump hats. It's not like men are walking around screaming, it's because of people like Vice who are making Trump out to be this misogynist, racist, sexist, that has that quota on them. But no woman in the world would be like, oh, he voted for, at least no sane woman would think, oh, wow, he voted for Trump. I mean, he's got all these great qualities I like so much. He could protect me. He can change a tire.
That's a big point you like. So people should know you got to be able to change a tire.
In order to date Ashton Whitty, you must be able to change a tire.
That's like one of your key points is you have to be able to change tires.
It's funny because did you know the majority of millennial men can't change a tire?
Really?
So the thing is, there was this whole article on young millennial women don't want to get married. And I said, well, the average millennial man can't change a tire, so I don't blame them. But the thing is that the men who have all of these qualities can protect a woman, says yes, ma'am, no, man. The men who act like men are conservatives. And so women will go on these dates with these perfect guys, at least in my opinion, perfect guys, not soy boys. And then they'll be like, oh no, he's reading a book written by Milo, or he.
Oh, right. Yeah, they said they went on a date with a person, and they got back to his apartment, and they saw that basically he had conservative books on his bookshelf. So even though the guys told her that he didn't vote for Trump and considers himself a moderate conservative, she ended things there.
It sounds like...
She's like, I have to get out of here. I can't see you, and left. The policies of these things that are attached to the right, whether or not you're a supporter of Trump, have been presupposed on you, and it's like a black mark. So that's what they're trying to do here. They're trying to put a mark on all conservatives, anyone who doesn't totally go along with the whole social justice echo chamber.
It almost sounds like you're trying to scare men to not be conservative.
Right.
And it's funny.
Yeah, no one's going to want to date you if you're...
a handful of conservatives in D.C. There's like maybe, what, 4? And
right.
Like, I don't think I've dated both men who are Democrat and Republican. And from the Republican men, I have been treated nicer. They have more manners. They actually, you know what they're doing as it comes to life. The majority of Democratic men are studying gender studies. You know,
yeah, what are the
so if these women
what are the top jobs out there you can do with the gender studies degree?
If these women are actually leaving their dates because the guy supports our president, maybe they're not the right woman. I mean, why would you want to date someone that clueless?
Right. But I think it all ties back into, I mean, all these things kind of tie in together. They're wanting people to feel alone. They're wanting it to have a chilling effect on people so that you won't want to be vocal about your support of the president. You won't want to go out to rallies. You won't want to wear, shirts from InfoWars or anything like that because no one's going to date you. That's the narrative they're trying to push.
Well, what's going to happen if this relationship goes further? Like, it gets to the point where you're dating this person for years and then you guys get married. Like, what are you going to do? Pretend to be a Bernie Sanders supporter your entire life? I think if you're on a date with somebody, especially if you're a guy, guys out there who are on dates with women, and I say bring up politics the first date. It's gotten to that point where we have to do it because if I don't want to waste my time. I don't waste my time if somebody gets so triggered that a woman like myself would vote for Trump or support Trump that, I wasted a good, 6 months to a year because, this guy can't handle the fact that, I support our country.
Well, and people are so politically polarized at this point that I don't think, two people, if they're both strongly political, can date each other.
They can't.
Like, a strong, like a Hillary supporter is going to, loathe the guy who voted for Trump.
Well, there's actually an article about that, how you really can't end up in a relationship with someone who has different morals than you or different political values than you. And they've actually done studies where Republicans and conservatives have the better relationships. They have longer lasting relationships, whereas Democrats, there's something about Democrats where statistically they don't value something as much. Then again, socialism, they think they get everything for free. But there was actually a study. You can't see you don't see a person of Trump's, you can never see a Trump supporter, or a liberal dating. It's just not happening. I mean, they could be dating, but it's not going to last long.
So are right-wing voters happy? This is from the Daily Mail. More Republicans tend to be married and have better relationships than those on the left. So, and I think that kind of has to do, I would think, with traditional values. People who have traditional values, I mentioned on Monday's show that my mom stayed home with my sister and I when we were growing up. Mm-hmm. And, very close family, but traditional values. And because of that, she was able to spend those crucial years with my sister and I while my dad went to go work. My mom would cook dinner for us every night. And because of things like that, my sister and I ended up very well-rounded and, smart, successful.
And that actually...
It ties into this, though. So Rose McGowan is tired of your gender constructs. So I also don't think it'll end well if you have someone who believes that gender is just a social construct and someone who thinks there are biological facts in this world. There are actual differences between men and women. Rose McGowan is tired of your gender constructs. I don't want to be a man or a woman. That's just the thing. I'm not.
I tweeted something last night. I think it was actually you sent it to me. I retweeted something last night where I commented on it, and it was someone said something along the lines of, the future is not female. The future is transsexual, transgender,
genderqueer.
Genderqueer. It was so many different. And I took that and I said, wow, this is what Darwin was talking about. The traditional values are in place so mothers and fathers can raise families together. And I also want to talk about this really quick when it comes to gender roles. Gender roles are in place for a reason. You know, I'm not saying women can't do certain things men can, or men can't do certain things women can, but gender roles are in place for a reason. And it's interesting to me that we are in such a society that wants to completely blend it out altogether.
Absolutely. And, you know, these things have worked very well for the human race for many, many years. Well, to try to go and bend that and change that at this point is definitely questionable. Ashton Whitty's joining me here on the War Room. I'm Michael Zimmerman. We'll be back on the other side of this break with more news and deconstruction. Welcome back to the War Room. I'm Michael Zimmerman, joined again by Ashton Whitty. We've been breaking down a couple articles here, things about traditional gender roles, not being a soy boy, a variety of topics. But we can't bring you this news, this content, you know, that's not heavily censored or not politically correct without your support. Whether you're listening to us on the radio, we're now on television, through Infowars.com/show, through the different apps, YouTube, Facebook. We've grown more, you know, over the past few years than ever before. Infowars is absolutely exploding, and we want to keep that expansion going, which is why we need your support. We've got some great specials running at InfowarsStore.com as part of Infowars Operation Paul Revere 2018. That was our 34-hour broadcast last week. Alex extended the sales to run all the way through this week, so we have some incredible discounts, 30 to 80% off on almost all the products in store. Prebiotic fiber, which I've been taking for probably close to 2 months now since we have been developing the product, is 50% off, introductory rate of $17.76. We've got the Real Red Pill for 50% off, Biome Defense for 50% off. The prebiotic fiber and taking it in conjunction with the Floralife probiotic, I've personally had great effects from that. Excellent combination, and we have a combo pack running right now that's 40% off. Definitely be sure to try these different things out. True Whey Protein, which Roger Stone is a big fan of, uses it daily. Real Red Pill, clearance apparel up to 80% off. And also one of my favorite products is the Aegis Backpack Insert. I travel frequently working here at Infowars, covering things around the country, around the world even. And when I travel, I take this backpack insert with me. I keep it in my backpack right next to my laptop because if somebody starts shooting somewhere, I'm going to personally want to have something like this. So it's very lightweight. It uses carbon nanotube technology, which is 100 times stronger than steel. And this gives it extra strength, and it cuts down in size and weight. We've had different body armors here around the office that we've shot videos with in the past. We've had some that, people had sent in to us that were heavy steel plates. And you don't want to carry around a 20-pound plate. This armor, you can get it for 20% off at InfowarsStore.com. Is extremely lightweight. Just slips in your backpack if you have a laptop compartment. This is really one of my favorite products that we carry at the Infowars store. And as I said, we cannot do this without your support. It is absolutely crucial that to keep this operation alive, you continue to support the Infowar, and we appreciate your help. Now, to get back into some more of these articles here, this was news that just broke during this break here. Martin Shkreli is someone that I think has definitely been demonized a lot by the media. I've read a lot about his case, and I've listened to what he has to say for himself. And a lot of people went after him and attacked him for the drug Daraprim, which was an antiretroviral drug. That's a tongue twister. And he raised the price on the drug, but that's not what he was being charged for. He was being charged with federal fraud charges related to hedge funds and a drug company, which he ran at one point. So they were not taking down Shkreli for raising the price of a drug. What he did there was lawful. And also, his company, Turing Pharmaceuticals, deals in rare diseases. They buy up these drugs that are not economically viable for these companies. And then he jacked the prices up so that he could continue this research into these other experimental drugs, which we need companies out there like that developing these cutting edge, state-of-the-art medications for people. And what Martin Shkreli did was not wrong, even though they demonized him. But anyway, he's been sentenced to 7 years in prison now, saying this is my fault. Which I did read an article the other day that said apparently he has grown out a beard and become buff in prison. He's just been working out constantly, which also doesn't really come as a surprise. If you've watched some videos of his, you kind of get an idea of who he is as a person. And you say you have a friend of a friend who knows him.
Yeah.
He's a very interesting guy. It's interesting to see him sentenced for 7 years. because this is someone that the media kind of collectively came out and demonized. They said, no, Martin Shkreli is bad. They called him Pharma Bro and all these things. Really is just a smart guy. Also, he's supposedly having to give up the exclusive Wu-Tang album, Wu-Tang Clan album that he possesses as part of this settlement. So getting into a little bit more news, one of the biggest stories of the past 24 hours is that yesterday, South Korean leaders were at the White House and they gave a press conference and they said, you know, we've spoke to Kim Jong-un. He is interested in sitting down and speaking to President Trump about total denuclearization, which over the entire Obama administration, this wasn't talked about. They would threaten the U.S., they would get aid. Trump has taken a tough, strong stance, and they even mentioned that in their speech, that, you know, Trump has taken a strong stance on North Korea. And I think they're responding to that. You know, he was calling Kim Jong-un a little rocket man. And now Kim Jong-un is saying, he expressed his eagerness to meet President Trump as soon as possible. They're saying that the meeting will happen between them before May. So that's encouraging. You know, North Korea has been an issue. They're also stopping ceasing their tests, their rocket tests in the meantime. But of course, the media is trying to spin this as a bad thing. They're saying it's reckless. Trump is, you know, going to talk to the North Koreans. This is something the Obama administration was not able to get accomplished in 8 years. We always had North Korea threatening to nuke the U.S., to kill the U.S.
You know, I think Kim Jong-un actually respects Trump in a sense. I think he respects the very thing the left hates about him is that he is radical. And I think it's because Trump is radical, he's getting things done.
I think so. And also, strangely enough, Dennis Rodman, I think, may have some connection.
The ex-Bulls player?
In all of this. Yeah, former basketball player. Kim Jong-un likes basketball, and he's friends with Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman is also friends with Donald Trump. So this is kind of like the common connection between the two.
Dennis Rodman apparently gave Kim Jong-un a copy of The Art of the Deal.
That's right. Yeah, on his last trip to North Korea, he gave him a copy of Art of the Deal, which, if that's not some sort of a power move, or if he talked to Trump about it beforehand.
That's the most wonderful peace offering I think I've ever heard.
So only two people have met both Trump and Kim Jong-un. One is Dennis Rodman. So it's a very strange combination here. But I think maybe this former basketball player has done more to improve relations between the U.S. and North Korea. Because also, if you've read Art of the Deal, you know how Trump thinks and you know how Trump negotiates. He talks about things like the big ask. You know, you ask something that's way big and then you negotiate down. I think we've seen him do that a lot while in office. You know, he says, oh, we're going to build the wall. And then says, well, maybe we'll go for, you know, enhanced border security through different technologies, you know, different sensors, better, you know, upping our border patrol, things like that. So I think, you know, if Kim Jong-un read the book, then he may have a better idea of how Trump negotiates. But either way, I think as far as keeping the world out of nuclear war goes, it's definitely a positive thing that Kim Jong-un has agreed to meet with Donald Trump.
Who knew the Chicago Bulls can have such an impact?
Right. So also another thing that happened today that Daria here at the office sent me is Trump pardons Christian Saucier, former sailor jailed for submarine pictures, which this was at the time, a 22-year-old who took the photos in 2009 inside of a nuclear submarine. And so he was pardoned by Trump today. He learned the news while driving a garbage truck, the only job he could find with a felony conviction. So he served his time for taking these photos. So what he did is he took photos inside of a submarine and they said, oh, he's damaging national security. Well, during Trump's campaign, he mentioned these photos. He brought up these photos as a talking point. And he said that Saucier was ruined for doing nothing compared to what Hillary Clinton has done. And of course, we've still not seen Hillary Clinton charged with anything, but it is good that he's now been pardoned, a presidential pardon no less, so that this felony will hopefully drop off of his record and he'll be able to get work again. Because really, this was just demonizing a member of the military, something that happened 10 years ago. Cell phone photos from 2009. Do you remember how cell phone photos looked back then? I can't imagine much could be learned from that. But we'll be back on the other side of this break with more news and information. And also Roger Stone will be joining us in the segment after next. Stick with us. Welcome back to the War Room. I'm Michael Zimmerman, joined by Ashton Whitty. The past couple segments we've been talking about these differences between the genders, differences between the sexes, men and women. Rose McGowan being tired of gender constructs because I'm not a man or a woman. But as we know, And if you're a sane person, you realize there are men and there are women.
Since the beginning of time, this is what science has proven for many years. Obviously, the very fact that me and you are alive proves that they're just women and men. There's no such thing as in between. And that's kind of like what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. I think it's really important that we do address the fact that men are being turned like feminized.
Feminized,
women, yeah, and women are becoming masculine. And this is a serious danger to our society. I mean, this is obviously an attack on family values, as we need a man and a woman to build a proper family, as I stated with the Vice article on conservatives not wanting or not getting dates because they're too manly enough, apparently. But I want to talk about the difference between men and women psychologically. And you all know that I was kicked out of a classroom for talking about women being biologically and psychologically meant to be mothers. And a huge argument I have.
Because that's an extreme view in 2018, right?
I want to talk about, like, for example, basketball, right? There's a lot of girls who are into sports. They claim to be into sports. And I'm a Warriors fan until the day I die. Okay, but the only reason why I'm a Warriors fan is because my grandfather was into the Warriors, right? If you were to have a girl raised by other women who were not into sports whatsoever, she's not gonna wake up one day and say, wow, I'm into basketball. It doesn't happen. So
it's more of a nature versus nurture type of situation. Absolutely. Where you think that is something that is social conditioning to be interested in these different things.
They like to be aggressive. That's what they do. I mean, that's testosterone. That's what makes them that way. You know, women aren't actually into sports. I mean, they're into wearing a jersey and getting hyped up about something. They don't actually have, you know, when it comes to things like ice skating and cheerleading and gymnastics, that's one thing. But I'm talking about football, basketball, baseball. They don't have the testosterone to push them through or naturally be into these aspects.
Because there is some element of violence involved in all of those things and aggression. And right. Like you were saying, the testosterone, that brings the aggression and intensity to that.
But we're seeing men more than ever becoming feminine, and we're seeing women more than ever becoming masculine.
Right, and we read some articles earlier in the week about male fertility rates hit, record lows, or, why is male fertility decreasing? And the triumph of the beta male. This is being celebrated on the cover of the Hollywood Reporter. It's cool to, could you scroll down a little bit? Let's show how they're all putting their hands in each other's pockets, because that just takes the cake here. This is what's being celebrated.
These are my roommates, I promise you.
This is the whole Bay Area that you're from. So male infertility crisis in the U.S. has experts baffled. I don't know why they're baffled. We've read hundreds.
Biologically, it's actually it's a bigger impact psychologically, and that's why I always bring up the basketball situation, because women are meant to be mothers. Whether you like it or you don't have to be a mom. If you want to be a lawyer or a doctor, that's your choice. You don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. I can't wait to be a stay-at-home mom personally. But women are meant to be mothers. It's why we're more emotional. It's why we have a uterus. I don't know why anyone else would have a uterus personally, but we're meant to be moms. And you're meant to be a dad. And the women in the crew are meant to be moms, and the men in the crew are meant to be dads.
What was the Planned Parenthood tweet the other day that the internet had a lot of fun with? It was, some men have uteruses. And it's like, well... If you look at human chromosomes and actual DNA,
that's a woman.
There's men and women. That's a woman
with a bad haircut.
But I think the idea that gender is just a social construct is one that obviously only exists within humans, because we've got to this point and we have it so good that we find things like this to complain about.
Why is it farm animals are having babies?
Right.
Why is it our pets are having babies? Why is it a dog there's female and male? Why is it a cat there's female? Oh, there's actually an article where they're saying you can't.
Here's the tweet from Planned Parenthood. Some men have a uterus, and they repeat it 10, 15 times over. No, they don't. Men don't have a uterus.
My question is, why is it
cannot give birth?
Why is it people can be non-binary? But like our pets can't. And there's already an article saying that we shouldn't name our pets like.
You don't want to gender your pet because you don't know what gender your pet identifies as.
Despite the fact evolution has been like against this entire idea for years. This isn't, and you got people like Bill Nye, a science guy, which isn't even really a science guy, not even a real scientist, trying to tell people there's more than 2 genders now, trying to tell people that our purpose in life isn't to repopulate the earth.
Right. Well, I think that's part of the entire agenda too, is this, depopulation. It's destroying the family. It's breaking people up. It's making you sad. It's part of this whole Agenda 21 and other just general plots to undermine what built this country.
Destroyed the nuclear family.
Right.
It really is. My dog has a better sense of the nuclear family than most people do.
Right. Well, and that is something that's becoming more and more common is, just not having traditional families. Divorce rates are incredibly high. It's over 50% of people marriages end in divorce. It's not good what's going on. And like we've seen, the triumph of the beta male and the whole soy boy phenomenon that Paul Watson and others have done videos on. This is a threat to society. This is a threat to culture.
And more women than ever don't want to get married. And again, I said it because most men don't want to change a tire.
Right. And if you want to see the death of culture and the death of society, this is what it looks like. So do you want to get into some other articles here? Anything else you want to talk about here on the War Room today?
I'm a little angry right now. Men do not have uteruses. They're just wearing bad haircuts.
No, there are certain facts, and apparently facts are offensive now. There's a speech the other week where people stormed out of a panel that James Damore and others were on because they made a woman made the comment that there are biological differences between men and women. So a bunch of people stormed out, smashed the sound system.
It's also psychology. I mean, we are meant to repopulate the earth. And in order to raise our children properly, there has to be someone who is in place of motherhood and someone in place of fatherhood.
Well, and women are certainly better at the whole nurturing roles. Taking care of children, holding the family together. Right,
and
it's psychological.
Men are naturally better at going to work and getting things. It's how it's always been.
Hunting the animals. Yeah, it's like, thousands of years ago. Hunting the animals, building the shelter.
Your brain chemistry is way different than mine.
Sure.
100% different than mine. And people are now trying to say that you should go out and be playing Barbies. That your son should be playing with Barbies.
Well, right. And
that my daughter should.
Millie Weaver did a report on a drag show thing they had here in Austin, the whole cross-dressing thing, and they had children at this show. They were having young boys dress up in women's clothing.
Yeah.
And I don't see how this, here it is. Liberals drag kids into early sexualization. They are twerking. They're showing, these padded bras and things like that for children. They want to sexualize children. They want to put young boys in dresses. It's not okay. If you want to kill a culture, this is how you do it.
This isn't about, we're trying to be open-minded. No, you are literally making your child into a swimsuit model. You're making your 4-year-old into a swimsuit model.
This video is just, it's disturbing. It's really disturbing what's going on here. And I don't know what the way back from this is other than promoting traditional values, promoting Christianity. I think that's important too.
The reason why I feel like conservatives do push the gender role narratives is because of things like this, because people are putting makeup on little boys. And look, I don't have the problem. Look, if you want to do it, it's whatever. I've seen little boys put on nail polish and joke about it. This isn't that. This is little boys putting on bras and makeup and prancing around, acting like a stripper.
It's moving the Overton window also on what society will accept as far as what's normal. So next it's going to be saying pedophilia is normal and accepted. We've had articles about that many times on this show.
There's a whole thing on that.
Salon.com, there is the Todd Nickerson article about I'm a pedophile, not a monster. A lot of these,
tell it to Kevin Spacey.
left-wing outlets are pushing this pro-pedophile narrative because that's the thing. You just have to keep moving the line. If you think the line's going to stop somewhere, it's not going to. They're going to keep pushing that line. They're going to keep sexualizing children. They're going to keep promoting pedophilia. They're going to keep breaking down the gender roles.
The worst part of that is people like Kevin Spacey, for example. Do you remember what he wrote on Twitter? He says, I'm going to live my life now as a gay. No, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you're LGBT. You went too far. You hit on a 13-year-old boy.
Yeah, you're not a gay man. You're a pedophile, and you're trying to blame that?
They're trying to use LGBT as an excuse for pedophilia, and that's not okay.
Well, we could add an LGBTP.
No.
And we could add a letter. Right.
And the thing is, hasn't the LGBT community fighting against this for so long? Isn't the whole point, wasn't their whole narrative for the longest time saying, hey, we're not pedophiles?
Yeah, we're normal people just like you. So if you start letting, people who want to groom children and do all these things to them within your umbrella of inclusion, it's going to make you look bad too. It's going to make people less inclusive, less accepting. Well, thank you for joining me here on the War Room, Ashton. Jake Lloyd will be coming up next after this short break. And you're watching the War Room on Infowars.com/show.
This is what the High Commissioner on Human Rights at the United Nations thinks of nationalism and your defense of your rights as a legal citizen of your own country.
Over 2/3 of the national parliaments in European Union countries now include political parties with extreme positions against migrants. This discourse, based on racism, xenophobia, and incitement to hatred, has now expanded so significantly that in several countries it is dominating the political landscape. I deplore the continuing uncertainty about beneficiaries of the DACA program. I'm also concerned about proposals that could drastically reduce social protections, particularly in the light of the concerns expressed by the Special Rapporteur on extreme poverty and human rights following his visit to the US in December.
Battling the dialect of European globalism seeping into the United States, Attorney General Jeff Sessions dropped a lawsuit bombshell on California and spoke with California law enforcement to make it abundantly clear that their legislators and governor had crossed the line on becoming a sanctuary state.
Let no one contend that we reject immigration and want to wall off America from all immigrants. President Trump and the American people know what's happening. We admit 1.1 million immigrants lawfully to permanent resident status in the United States with a clear path to citizenship, green card status every year. No nation comes close to that. I understand that we have a wide variety of political opinions out there on immigration, but the law is in the books and its purposes are clear and just. There is no nullification. There is no secession, a refusal to apprehend and deport those, especially the criminal element, effectively rejects all immigration law. It's a rejection of law, and it creates an open borders system. It's the only way it can be described. And open borders is a radical, irrational idea that cannot be accepted. The American people will not accept it.
Now harboring over roughly 2.5 million illegal aliens, California Governor Jerry Brown, in typical liberal lunatic fashion, confirmed an earlier statement he had made against the enforcement of U.S. immigration laws, foolishly labeling the perceived aggression an act of war.
You called this an act of war from the federal government.
An act of war?
And you said that...
That's pretty strong. But I reincorporate that comment, yes.
Okay, so does that mean that California is going to retaliate to what the federal government had?
No, we are a state of laws. We want to observe the law, and now the Attorney General has basically thrown the gauntlet down and done it in a highly politicized way. Yeah, this is a very aggressive act on the part of the Trump administration. And it's not right. It won't stand.
Meanwhile, President Trump spoke to the Latino coalition representing true American progress and unity, reiterating the founder's sentiment, united we stand, divided we fall.
America First is about unity. It's about coming together as one family, one big, beautiful American family. No matter our race or color or creed, to protect our jobs, our communities, and our country. We want all Americans to thrive and flourish together.
California has imprisoned over 2,400 illegal immigrants for homicide, while The Hill reported the DOJ and the U.S. Sentencing Commission reported that as of 2014, illegal immigrants were convicted and sentenced for over 13% of all crimes committed in the United States. Meanwhile, a psychotic Kim Jong is feverishly building a nuclear missile capable of reaching the California coastline. A deadly hepatitis A outbreak has reached epidemic proportions, and California is teetering on the edge of the cliff of bankruptcy.
Welcome back to the War Room. I'm Michael Zimmerman, joined by Jake Lloyd in this second hour. I thought Roger Stone would be joining us, but he's actually working on some different news stories behind the scenes right now. So expect him back on Monday. But we have stacks of news to go over. And you actually went out today with a few of the other people here at the office, Nathan and Ashton, to cover what was supposed to be a pretty big event at South by Southwest, or one would think in this liberal mecca of Austin.
I would have thought so, because so Bernie Sanders was in town talking to Jake Tapper,
fake flapper
of CNN, of fake news CNN, the communist news network. So I would have expected that there would have been a lot of excitement, a lot of hype coming from the left-wingers here in Austin, because there's so many of them. But I mean, we went out there and there weren't really that many. Like, a lot of people were either like, oh no, I don't want to talk. Like, I don't like Bernie, or a lot of people from out of the country saying, oh, who's Bernie Sanders? But
that is one thing you mentioned. I asked you when you got back how the event went, and you mentioned that there are a lot of people here at South by Southwest. Oh, that's a beautiful, beautiful graphic behind us. For those listening on radio, it says Ruski agent Comrade Sanders, South by Southwest, 2018.
Comrade Sanders. We got Ashton got called a Russian infiltrator.
Okay.
Yeah. That we had probably two people. Well, one guy tried to like grab the microphone, and he ended up just knocking his own Coke out of his hand. But that's fine. It's kind of fat. He didn't really need it. So he didn't really need it. But one chick called Ashton a Russian infiltrator. And then one girl was dressed in like a sailor's outfit. I think she thought that she was trying to make anime real. And she said that she liked Bernie, and Ashton said, why? And she said, I like his policy. What policy?
Free
eating the
college,
rich.
bro.
She literally said, eating the rich. Eating the rich, yeah. So
remind me, how many houses does Bernie Sanders own?
Oh, only three.
Three houses.
Only like $1 million a piece.
Man, I've got one apartment, one like 850 square foot apartment. So I think Bernie Sanders needs to check his privilege.
Yeah, I heard that his ethics are what makes him qualified, but I'm fairly certain that he and his wife are under investigation for fraud.
Yeah, there was a whole thing about, what was it, $10 million going to the university. We won't talk about that. That's got to be fake news. But that's interesting to hear that even in Austin, we've seen Antifa at different events. Of course, they probably didn't bring their masks with them when going to attend the Bernie Sanders event. I'm sure they were very excited, and I'm sure there were some of them out there.
I think the only reason that we didn't get swarmed by Antifa was because they didn't have their masks with them, so they weren't prepared to have their faces on camera, so they stayed away. And normally what happens, because we had a lot of people like scowling at us and like taking pictures and then like sending text messages.
Look at that info worth out here.
Send it to the network. Like they send
These people are so proud of themselves too. It's kind of funny.
They're like, get the shock troops ready, and like they bring like their masks. That's what happened to me at UT the other day, and I think that happened. But the traffic is so bad in Austin. I think that they were like got all their masks on and tried to drive down, and they just hit stonewall traffic. So
I was driving home last night here in Austin, and I know this isn't really of national news, but they had every single lane. The weekend of South by Southwest, this is just how bad a local government is at these things. The week leading into South by Southwest, more people in Austin than any other time of year. Traffic is insane, like you mentioned.
Yep.
They had 35, one of the most major freeways in the country, shut down to one lane going southbound.
Oh, that's real nice.
So, and of course, it's late at night, so there's hundreds of 18-wheelers backed up, and it took me a little over an hour to go what should take me about 3 minutes. Yeah, so that was a little frustrating. So I don't really know what our liberal government here in Austin is doing.
This happens every year. And they can't put it into it. The city of Austin can pass a resolution saying that they will not give any contracts to any contracting company that works on Trump's wall.
Right.
I interviewed a guy the other day who is trying to work on Trump's wall. He put out a bid, and the city passed a thing just that day that was like, yeah, we're not going to do any business. The city of Austin can do that, but they can't manage to plan for a traffic nightmare that happens every single year like clockwork.
They were doing bridge construction, which in this area they've been doing for over a year now. And they, of course, waited to do it this week of South by Southwest. So I don't really get what's going on, with all of this. And it's interesting. Another point I was thinking of about the Bernie Sanders thing was that South by Southwest is actually incredibly expensive to attend. The bans and passes for it can be over $1,000. Actually, Rob Dew's in the studio fixing a camera. Do you know how much the passes for South by Southwest are?
I think over $350.
At least $350. It's quite expensive to attend this event. So the people attending the event with Fake Flapper and Comrade Sanders had to pay hundreds of dollars to attend it. So the average, working class. All right, here's some badges. The Platinum and Interactive, which it said those were the only two able to attend. If you want the full passes, it's $1,250 or $925. So your average, I could not afford this. I don't have that much discretionary, spending money that I could go out there and buy these passes to attend this event. So you have people attending a communist event talking about how much they love socialism, how much they want the redistribution of this, and it's only available to those out there who are wealthy enough to get into it.
It sounds like a bunch of class traders to me.
Slave labor too.
Oh yeah.
Right. So there's Rob just brought up there's basically slave labor going on at South by Southwest. They get people to volunteer for this event. They charge thousands of dollars to attend to thousands of attendees. I think a lot of these people con their employers into paying for them to go or something. But because that is a lot of money to spend. Going to a music festival for a weekend, you might spend $150, $175 or something.
Oh yeah,
they're pricey. But this South by Southwest festival, to get into the good events, they've got the different tiers. They've got their different social classes.
Yeah, exactly.
Which Sanders would be kind of opposed
social
to.
Classes.
The wealthiest, the elite social classes were able to go hear Comrade Sanders speak here in Austin. But it's interesting to hear it was essentially a flop.
I think it's pretty fascinating. It was really interesting. We had a lot of people who were telling us about the virtues of socialism, how beautiful the whole system is. And then one guy was here. He works in advertising. And so he's like, I think that Bernie's probably better. I think that his socialist system probably works better. And Ashton actually had a good line of questioning. I didn't know exactly where she was going. I thought she was just interested about the advertising world. But she's like, oh, so what does that entail? What kind of work are you doing down here? He's like, oh, we're just seeing, what's up and coming, what's happening next year, where the trends are going, where the advertising market is going to be, how everybody's going to be doing things. And she's like, oh, so you're like watching like how things shift.
So you're like a capitalist.
And he was like, yeah, basically. She's like, where does that come from? He's like, well, I don't. What do you mean? She goes, oh, like capitalism. And it was pretty funny because we have all these people out there. I mean, we had somebody from Costa Rica who was talking about how good socialism is.
That's great. It was socialism that put them on a plane. It was a socialist airline that flew them to Austin. It was a socialist hotel that they're staying at. It was a socialist ride-sharing service that they used to get around town. It was a socialist restaurant they went to. No, it wasn't. All of those things were parts of the capitalist system that enabled these morons to move themselves up here to Austin and walk around South by Southwest with their $1,200 passes around their neck and have the guts to tell you this is because of how great a communist system is. It doesn't happen. In Venezuela, people are eating dogs. They're eating farm animals.
They're eating giraffes.
They're not. I didn't even know they had giraffes in Venezuela.
Hey.
I just cannot believe these people, the audacity of these people to lecture the rest of us on the virtues of socialism when everything they have to be grateful for, the fact they're even able to afford and attend events like South by Southwest, is because of capitalism.
Yeah, all of the good things that they use, they think that it's just that those are like side things. They don't think that that's like a result of capitalism. They think that it's something that we have in spite of the evils of capitalism, which is just, one of the most asinine things ever. Because, like you said, hotels and ride sharing and restaurants and flights, all these different things are just byproducts of capitalism that these socialist countries leech off of. Because if you look at a country like, we're always told like every developed nation in the world
has a free healthcare.
Exactly. Bernie Sanders is always talking about Sweden and Denmark and Norway and all these countries that have these social programs. But in reality, every one of them, they always go socialist. And then they are about to fail, so they go back into a hardline capitalist system. They ride the wave of economic prosperity.
With their great resources and wealth and all that.
Exactly. And then they use it to fill up the coffers, and they ride socialism again until they're broke.
And we see it over and over again. Don't be a socialist. We'll be back on the other side. Welcome back to the War Room. Michael Zimmerman here, joined by Jake Lloyd. We have some breaking news here. Armed man takes hostages at veterans' home in California. I don't think veterans really need any worse treatment after what the VA puts these people through. Roger Stone's been covering this week how the VA tortures dogs.
Yeah, the government doesn't have a good track record with animals.
But people want to trust the government and take all the guns away, so only the government will have guns, because that's a brilliant idea. This is the information that's available at this time. A shooter armed with what is believed to be a high-powered rifle. Bet you it's going to be an AR-15, so they can call to ban those.
Assault rifle 15.
Reportedly stormed the Veterans Home of California in Utenville at about 10:30 a.m. The assailant then began shooting, unloading 30 shots in a housing complex of 850 residents, police scanner traffic indicated. So California Highway Patrol is working with Napa County Sheriff's Office to establish a perimeter and clear buildings. So I know we've seen some cases in the past where shootings have actually been done by veterans, which I think can be directly attributed to how poorly we take care of our veterans.
Right.
You know, PTSD is a serious issue. Mental health is a serious issue. And I don't think enough is being done to address it. So it's unclear if it could be that kind of situation we're seeing here, or if someone was specifically targeting veterans. But the fact he had taken several people hostage is definitely concerning. And of course, those people are in our prayers, that all of this gets resolved in a way that, you know, no one's hurt. But we were just talking during the break about how incredible this is, that Trump might fix the whole North Korea thing.
Yeah.
The whole situation we've had with North Korea for many years now, since, I mean, Korean War.
Yeah.
We're still at war with North Korea, by the way.
60-year-long conflict almost. Just a, yeah, 67-year-old conflict. And the fact that I was saying in the break, it's hard for me to believe I'm all behind Trump. He scares me sometimes. Sometimes he makes me, I get a little apprehensive because I don't know what he's going to do. But overall, I'm behind Trump. But I still can't believe that Donald Trump is the president. And much less can I believe that Donald Trump may fix the North Korea problem.
And Dennis Rodman may play a part in all of this.
Operation Dennis Rodman is a success.
Well, and I mentioned during the first hour with Ashton Whitty on here how Dennis Rodman actually brought a copy of Art of the Deal to North Korea on his last trip. And then here's an article from the Washington Post. Only 2 people have met both Trump and Kim Jong-un. One is Dennis Rodman. That's a pretty incredible fact.
It's pretty incredible.
And he hasn't just met them. He's pretty good friends with the both of them. I mean, Dennis Rodman has made multiple trips to North Korea where he hangs out with.
Yeah, he's pretty close with Kim Jong-un.
So even the Washington Post is calling Dennis Rodman giving him a copy of Art of the Deal a genius move. They're saying it could be a genius move.
What if Kim Jong-un is secretly a Trump fanboy? And he's just super into The Apprentice, and he's he
definitely loves American culture. For radio listeners, we have a picture up on screen of Dennis Rodman with Kim Jong-un, a very unlikely combination, a total horrible dictator and a former basketball player with a face covered in piercings.
Yeah.
It's incredibly strange, but the two have said that they will meet. And we actually have a clip from MSNBC saying that trying to discredit all of this, trying to take away credit from Trump. It's not a good thing that North Korea says they'll get rid of their nukes. As someone who doesn't want to get bombed by a nuke,
holocaust.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to a nuclear holocaust. I think this is a very positive thing, and whatever Trump can do with this is more than the last administration did. So we're already making great progress, under budget, ahead of schedule, as Trump says. So MSNBC is trying to say that the entire Trump-North Korea breakthrough is fake news to distract from the porn star allegations, of course, the Stormy Daniels allegations. So let's go ahead and take a look at that clip.
Yeah, so Willie...
Is this a deflection?
Of course it's a deflection. Willie...
From Stormy?
Well, yes, of course from Stormy.
Who can keep their eyes off the whole Stormy situation?
Certainly not from the Northeast.
This meeting face-to-face with the leader of North Korea and the President of the United States actually will come to pass, or whether it's some peace in a larger negotiation with that country over its nuclear weapons.
Or again, a distraction to change the headlines from Stormy Daniels, which was yesterday.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
To North Korea today. But why don't we start with major developments?
Let's get to the details of.
Man, Trump's great distracting us using.
Just makes a decision.
Maybe he'll
using the disarming of a rogue nuclear power to distract from porn star sex allegations. Whoa,
this is great. I'd like him to keep doing this.
Please.
So what is
porn stars? Could you please accuse Trump of more stuff?
Morning Joe and his gang of friends have to say about this?
He wanted. You know what? He did not want the Washington Post to have the word Stormy Daniels on the front page today. guess what? He succeeded, and he succeeded by lying about a letter that didn't even exist. And now he's
angry at his press secretary for actually confirming that there was some sort of transaction,
telling the truth, and fools rush in.
His relationship with the porn star is confirmed, and he doesn't want it on the front page.
There's no question.
You know, even if all the Trump Stormy Daniels stuff is true, which it could be, you know, I'm not going to pretend that that's not a possibility, but to pretend that Trump is doing all of this, you know, to ease tensions with North Korea and take away their nukes, which is a great thing, in order to distract us against a alleged relationship or sexual transaction he may have had with a porn star 10 years ago, before ever running for office, before ever getting in this realm of politics. Even if he did, you know, that is an issue for him and Melania to address. Now, if it ends up being a Bill Clinton-like situation and he's asked about it, which I don't see how he would be, it didn't happen while he was in office, and I don't even think it disqualifies him from being president. Is it a little morally bankrupt? Yeah, I think so. I don't encourage it. Supposedly, when all this happened, he had just got married to Melania, and Barron was just born when this whole Stormy Daniels allegation supposedly happened. But I don't think that changes anything in this case.
And it's also, it's like, who voted for Trump because he was the pinnacle of sexual virtue?
Right.
Nobody. But also, I don't know if you've seen some paper the other day put out a piece about the hush agreement, the contract, the NDA, and Trump's name is not in it. It's like Stormy Daniels and whatever, she has like multiple aliases. I don't remember, her name is something like Cliffordson.
That's like a stage name.
It's like Stephanie Cliffordson is her actual name, and so it's got that Stormy Daniels and then another one of her names, and then below it, it's like Daniel Davidson or something like that. And what they're saying is that is what Trump was called. Like, they called Trump Daniel Davidson in the contract.
Kind of like a Carlos Danger type of name?
Yeah, like a Carlos Danger type of name. So it's like, I don't know. How can you prove, number one, she says that it's not binding because Daniel Davidson never signed it. So,
right. A contract like that would have to be signed by both parties. Stormy Daniels follows suit, claims NDA is invalid because Trump didn't sign at the dotted line, or in this case, they put XXX to be, I guess, make a pun of it.
Be funny. Yeah, and I don't know. She doesn't seem very distraught over any of this. She seems.
Oh no, I don't think there were any allegations that there was anything improper. I think she's just like, someone probably paid her some money to put this in the spotlight again and make an issue of this. So, any final thoughts on this Stormy Daniels?
Not really. I just think that it's pretty. You know, I'm not going to shy away from calling a porn star what they are. So.
Yeah, exactly. Stick with us. You're watching The War Room.
Welcome back, everybody, to The War Room. My name is Jake Lloyd, joining Michael Zimmerman here, your host for the remainder of this fourth hour, and then probably a little bit later on today in the third hour. You know, while we haven't plugged all that much this hour, so while you are here, go ahead, if you enjoy what we're doing today, if you enjoy the alternative media coverage that InfoWars delivers you, if you like seeing the other side of the story, if you like hearing about the things that the mainstream media won't tell you about, if you like hearing the truth, and you want to support us, please go to InfoWarsStore.com. We have unprecedented deals going on right now. They're extended.
Huge specials, honestly. They're huge.
They're huge. Huge specials. Operation Paul Revere 2018. They're extended from the marathon broadcast. 30 to 80% off site-wide sale, plus free shipping. Now, by the way, also, while you're here, while you're listening, if you go to InfoWars.com, if you don't particularly need any products right now, there is a donate button. I wish there was a donut button.
A donut button.
I could go for a donut, but
incredible.
You can just donate. But anyways,
I think the donations are great, and we have received definitely some donations since starting all of this, and asking people for donations, because yeah, if there's not anything in there that really sounds great to you, you can donate in different amounts, and 100% of that money goes into funding this operation.
Right.
Instead of the products, we've got to buy the products and then we sell them to you, and we try to not mark them up that much, because we want to bring you the highest quality products out there at the best prices. But the donations are 100% the best way to fund this operation. If you want to keep things running, Alex was talking earlier in the week about just the barrage of lawsuits, at least 10 lawsuits at this point, against InfoWars to try to shut us down, to try to silence our speech. You know, with the latest one this week being from the creator Pepe the Frog. But we're fighting back. We're not going anywhere. And we need your support to do it.
Absolutely. Be sure to go to InfoWarsStore.com because like Michael was saying, you know, like during the campaign, for example, if you bought a Trump hat, you might pay $25 for it and it's like an, you know, 80, 90% profit on that to fund the campaign. We don't do that. We have prices comparable to other competitors' prices. So Super Male Vitality, Super Female Vitality is 50% off right now. The Real Red Pill is 50% off. Biome Defense 50, True Whey Protein, those are both 50% off. True Whey is excellent if you're lifting weights and you're not taking protein, you're doing it wrong. You need to go ahead and, you know, restock your body's protein.
No soy and whey protein. Soy. Exactly.
No soy.
Don't go for that soy protein.
Exactly.
Whey protein is made from milk. Great stuff. It tastes great too. Just mix it with water, and it's so good. It is excellent.
It's so good because it already has the milk in it because it's made from it. So yeah, right. you get the point. So InfoWars,
$19.95 too. If you've gone out and bought protein powder,
price.
$19.95 for a big bottle of protein powder is incredible.
That's a great price. So other InfoWars Life select products are 40% off. Clearance apparel, 80% off if you want to get some shirts. I'm not sure exactly what's in their shirts, hats, hoodies maybe. They are 80% off for clearance apparel. And I'm sure we have some other discounts going on different shirts and stuff right now. And then finally, the Aegis Armor body backpack insert is 20% off. If you want to carry some body armor in a backpack, in a laptop bag, wherever, in your car, in a bug-out bag, whatever, what have you, this is an excellent way to do it. It's, you know, the world is a dangerous place. We can't stop everybody. The best way to defend yourself is to take your safety into your own hands with your own firearms and your own body armor. So this is an excellent way to do it. It's down from $150 to $120. That's a great price. 20%, $30 off. So please go check out.
And they're funding the InfoWar. You really can't lose. You're getting incredible products while at the same time keeping all of this.
A lot of these products you could probably go somewhere else and get. Maybe you do. Maybe you already get some of these products somewhere else, but you don't have the added benefit of paying the same price because you're not, or less, because you're not going to pay more here. So paying the same price or less and supporting the InfoWar, supporting this organization and our fight against the falsehoods coming out of the mainstream media.
Yeah, and like you were saying, you already buy toothpaste, deodorant, all those things for your house and your family anyway. You can sign up with AutoShip. It's the easiest thing you can do. Have toothpaste and deodorant show up to your house. You know, just and the mouthwash too. All the Super Blue products. You can have those show up once a month, and you don't even have to think about it. And you're continuously supporting the InfoWar. So please, InfoWarsStore.com. Support this fight. Support this. What we're doing here at InfoWars.
It's excellent stuff, and it's healthy. You know, I'll personally attest. I was kind of skeptical about the merits of the toothpaste and everything when I first started paying attention to it.
Squeaky clean.
Yeah, and I mean, my girlfriend is a health, she knows everything there is to know about health stuff, and now she uses Super Blue. She used to make her own toothpaste because that was the healthiest way to do it, but now she uses Super Blue regularly because it is so. I mean, it's so good. It's so good, and I use it too now. So
definitely. Well, thank you for supporting us. We've got a number of other articles here to cover. What direction would you like to head, Jake?
I don't know. You know, we can talk about this Mueller thing in a minute. You mentioned something earlier about the VA hurting dogs, and I think it reminded me of this Daily Caller article because I had people talking to me today about the EPA and how Trump is making the EPA suddenly unfriendly to the environment. But the EPA doesn't have a great record of being friendly because a lot of these people,
Animas River,
yeah, a lot of the people who are talking about how we should care for the environment, they're also super into caring for animals. But this Daily Caller article says that the EPA animal testing studies forced rats to inhale diesel exhaust and smog, and they went through 20,000 animals a year. The EPA goes through 20,000 animals a year in their testing processes. So there's not a whole lot to say on that, but you know, the EPA might not have the best record in conservation and caring for
on the same animals. Note of inhaling diesel fumes and diesel exhaust, when Volkswagen was trying not to get slapped with massive lawsuits and recalls, which they ended up having to do on their diesel vehicles, they went to a third-party firm, which, by the way, they funded, a research firm. And I actually saw this in I'm drawing a blank on the name of it, but it was a series on Netflix. There was just, each episode was, exposing something basically. And this first one was about the whole Volkswagen emissions scandal. Their plan at Volkswagen was to seat humans in a booth and have them inhale the diesel fumes to show that it wasn't bad for people. So here's an Infowars.com article from 2012 over the EPA being sued for experimentation on human subjects.
Wow.
I mean, it's really twisted stuff that you wouldn't think goes on in this country.
This is the EPA's plan?
That was the EPA. Sorry, Volkswagen, though, is what I was referring to. This is more recent than 2012.
Wow.
And they were planning, they're like, yeah, we'll just have humans breathe in the diesel exhaust from the vehicles, and we'll show that because they have the defeat device installed, you know, the emissions are not harmful. Well, they ended up just using monkeys instead, primates. So either way, it's sick. And that just reminded me of it. It's like, you think these big government organizations are good. You think all these three-letter agencies are so good. The EPA is there to protect you. The ATF is to, you know, regulate alcohol and firearms. You think the FBI is to investigate things. You think the CIA is for intelligence. Yeah. They all have sinister things going on, and you know how incompetent government is. We were just talking about how they shut down one of the largest freeways on one of the busiest weeks in Austin, Texas, to a single lane and backs up, you know, the traffic for miles. Here's New York Times. Volkswagen suspends top lobbyist amid inquiry into diesel tests on monkeys. So they really got caught there. And I mean, that cost their company a lot of money and was a big embarrassment for them.
Yeah. And I guess we can talk, you know, because what somebody said to me today, this is just a quick little experiment for everybody out there listening. If you want to see how the narrative is twisted by the mainstream media, like the Washington Post, for example, you know, we were talking to people about Bernie Sanders, saying, do you like him? Do you think that he'd be better than Trump? Why? And one person said because he wouldn't pass a bill saying that companies can dump waste into the rivers and lakes of the country. And he pulled it up on his phone and he showed me a Washington Post article that says Trump passes bill that companies can dump toxic waste into rivers. So I was like, well, that's the Washington Post. I'll have to read into that, you know, because I'm not going to take it at face value.
Probably a little more to the story, knowing.
And I looked it up. He didn't pass a bill saying that he would do that. But we'll get back. I can talk about it a little bit more later. But basically, he repealed an Obama-era regulation that strangled companies, and it just happened to be called something.
Why Trump just killed a rule restricting coal companies from dumping waste in streams? I recall this was like you couldn't even open a mine within 100 miles of a river or something like that. It was extremely total insanity. Thanks for watching The War Room. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back to The War Room. I'm Michael Zimmerman, joined again by Jake Lloyd. We're just talking about how the EPA was poisoning a number of animals, just making them breathe in diesel exhaust because people think the government's so great and they want to put the government in charge of everything. The government never makes mistakes. The government never kills people.
Yeah, the government is the pinnacle, the pinnacle of friendly virtue.
Morals don't exist without government. We don't have any morals. We have laws that we have to follow. Because people would never be moral without government.
However, could we know? It shows how far this country has come because the idea, I don't know. The country was founded on Lockean theory, these other things like that people kind of govern themselves with limited government as long as they have, you know, they can protect themselves and that their responsibilities to protect themselves, their own rights, life, liberty, property, etc. And now we have people who don't even know healthcare is a right now. So it's
everything's a right if you yell loud enough.
The whole idea of rights and what it is and what moral behavior is completely turned upside down.
Well, it ties into with the total decline of individualism and personal responsibility in this country. You know, people don't want to make things for themselves. They don't want to think for themselves. They want things to be provided for them. So before we move on, this is an article I came across today that was pretty disturbing. This is from EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and the headline is Geek Squad's relationship with the FBI is cozier than we thought. So basically, if you took your computer into a Best Buy store and dropped it off at the Geek Squad, they would ship it off to their repair center in Kentucky. And so the EFF filed a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act, last year to learn more about how the FBI uses Geek Squad employees to flag illegal material. So they would be digging through your system and then reporting you to the FBI if you had anything illegal on there. So yes, they came across and busted some people for things like child pornography. But they bring up a good point in that the relationship potentially circumvents computer owners' Fourth Amendment rights because they're basically, you know, inviting the government in to come look through your systems and basically acting as government whistleblowers.
Yeah, that's pretty sketchy. That's pretty sketchy ground, to be honest, as far as the Fourth Amendment goes. I definitely wouldn't want the government looking through my, you know, and I don't have anything criminal. I don't even have anything weird. That's
well,
the thing. It's
that's
like,
the argument a lot of people make.
Dude.
That's the argument a lot of people make is, I have nothing to hide, so what should I be afraid of?
Exactly. It's like, I just don't want people looking at my stuff. I don't care. It's like, I don't even have anything weird on there. It's not even like it's just not illegal. No, I have like the most boring computer possible. But it's like, I just don't want people looking at it. I just don't want people in my
especially
business.
the FBI digging through your stuff. And a company
they never plant stuff on people.
No, the FBI's never planted drugs on people. They never charged people with crimes they weren't guilty of. That's never happened.
The FBI's never sent Martin Luther King a letter saying that he should kill himself and all of his private information wouldn't come out. It's fine.
That sounds like a conspiracy theory. Man. Armed man takes hostages. We went over that. North Korea asked for direct nuclear talks, and Trump agrees. Again, excellent information. Pharma bro Martin Shkreli sentenced to 7 years behind bars. We covered that earlier. Sobbing in court and asking the judge to show him mercy at a fraud trial when even his own lawyer said he wanted to punch him in the face. He just has that effect on people. I don't dislike the guy, but I can see maybe the punchable face angle.
Yeah, I get that. I don't really know what the whole. I haven't followed the Martin Shkreli thing too much. I know that it sounds kind of
well, it was for fraud, and it involved hedge funds. And when you start coming after important people's money, people with power, that's when you're going to prison. This was another article about just government intrusion. As you remember, after the San Bernardino shooting, the FBI was trying to get into the phones of the shooters, and Apple said, well, we can't really do that for you, because to compromise the security of one user would compromise the security of all users. And as much as I don't really like them as a company, I do have to commend that, because at least they, even if it was just pretending, they seem to take the side of people's rights over helping the government without question. But there's something new on the market called Gray Key, and it's able to unlock the most recent models of iPhones. It's from an American startup called Gray Shift, which appears to be run by longtime U.S. intelligence agency contractors and an ex-Apple security engineer.
Wow.
So they've created a tool that's $15,000 called Gray Key, which permits 300 uses, so you can unlock 300 phones and get into them. That's for an online mode, while an offline version costs $30,000 that comes with unlimited uses. So police departments are supposedly already using this, or could quickly have this in their arsenal. For 15 grand, the police could pull you over, plug your phone in, and pull all the content off of it. Which also, we've seen people's laptops and other electronic devices being searched at borders, which is of a big concern to me, because even if you have nothing to hide, like we were saying, I don't have anything interesting on my phone. I have text with people, you know, music, photos, you know, what everyone's got on their phone. You know, I don't have child porn or, you know, like drug websites or anything like that. Nothing illegal. So why wouldn't I want the government looking through my phone? Well, it's my right. Why do you need to look through my phone? Why do you need to dig into my life?
It doesn't matter, and I don't have to justify it. That's right. That's the point of right, is I don't have to justify it.
It's just like guns. I don't have to justify why I can own a gun. I can own a gun because it's in the Second Amendment and it's my right.
When I was on air for the 34-hour broadcast the other day, Matt, one of the crew members, told me something. He was like, he was talking about an argument that they often bring up is, do you really think that your right to own a gun, you know, trumps everybody else's right to life? It's like, no, they're equal. Like, you have a right. Rights
don't
have an order of importance. Rights don't have an order of importance. You just have a right to all of them. You don't have more or less of a right to one or the other. You have the right to life. You have the right to defend yourself with arms. You have the right to be secure in your property. You have these rights, and just you don't.
And government doesn't give you these rights either. Right. These are God-given rights.
We've been tricked into like bartering for our rights. Like, well,
we'll trade this.
I'll trade you some of my Fourth Amendment rights, so I don't have all of it if you just let me keep my guns. It's like we don't need to barter. We have all of them. They're inherent within your being, and the government doesn't give them to you.
Exactly. Also, while we're still on the subject of tech news, SpaceX wants to bring the World Wide Web to the whole wide world. Using a network of thousands of satellites, they're still prototyping this, but they will have ground stations that communicate to this, and we have already internet infrastructure. Basically, every continent and country is connected together through undersea fiber optic cables. The whole backbone of the U.S. is very well connected, city to city, with fiber optic cables. Very high speed. Well, their idea is they've got the ability to launch satellites. Let's make a global satellite network. So in the most remote areas, because satellite communications are currently incredibly expensive, which, just getting our programming on satellite is very expensive to do, but we're going to reach a whole new audience. We've got a lot of TV stations wanting to come on board, but satellite internet has always been something that's crazy expensive. That's why if you've ever been on a cruise or something out in the middle of nowhere, Wi-Fi on a cruise is incredibly expensive. It's like $30, $40 a day. And that's just for like a small time slot, because there's cost associated in it. But SpaceX, always getting themselves in the news. That's, I think, what this company is best at, is generating great news stories. They could have launched a big brick of concrete as a mass simulator when they did their most recent launch, but they didn't. They launched a car into space, blasted it into deep space, because that got the entire country talking about them for weeks. Yeah. So here they are demoing satellites for its high-speed internet project.
If SpaceX, if Elon Musk can do this, then it sounds good to me. I don't know too much about this stuff. It sounds good. The guy he's making things happen. As far as the boring company and everything. If they can get this, is it called Hyperloop? Is that what it's going to be called? If they can get Hyperloop to work, and if they can start putting people in space, then
he really wants to. He's a very intelligent guy, and he wants to have these entire paradigm shifts in industries. The cost that it takes SpaceX to launch something into low Earth orbit versus what NASA was spending with the shuttle program. Yeah, it's night and day. Individuals, their businesses often do things better than government does. Which you've seen government spies on you. Government, does some good things, but also, so manufacturing jobs up 31,000 in February, 263,000 since Trump took office. Trump is to thank for that, but also American industry is to thank for that. The American business owners who are hiring people, who have faith in this country, and want things to grow.
Yeah, it ultimately comes down to the backbone of the American worker, because Trump can create all this confidence in business. He can do all of these things to promote industry coming back to the United States. But if it's not for the American spirit and those of us Americans working in these industries able to prop it up, we wouldn't have any of it. So looks like we're about to close up the second hour right here. My name is Jake Lloyd. I'll be leaving, but Michael Zimmerman will continue hosting.
Joined by Millie Weaver. Welcome back to the third hour of the War Room. I'm Michael Zimmerman, joined by Millie Weaver.
Awesome. Well, it's great to be back in studio, Michael.
Yeah, we've missed having you and Gavin around. What have y'all been up to? We've seen all your incredible special reports from the road. A lot of them very interesting. One of my favorites is the Gay Frog compilation, because it seems like no matter where in this country you go, we can't avoid going out on the street and people ask about the gay frogs.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's one of the go-tos for liberals. So when you ask them a real question or something that could get them thinking, or even if they just happen to spot the InfoWars moniker, they're immediately going to revert to the gay frogs. Alex Jones says gay frogs, and they'll get really upset.
The government's turning the frogs gay.
The government's turning the frogs gay. They have no idea what they've been talking about. And so, yeah, I mean, we traveled around, went up to Denver a bunch. We actually followed a march on DACA, which was interesting. It was the March for a Dream Act in Colorado Springs, where you had a bunch of DACA kids out there demanding that they were going to get this DREAM Act without having to have the Democrats compromise at all whatsoever with the Republicans. And so many people commented saying that, these people came off very spoiled, saying,
so hey. It's like, this is the clean bill that they were talking about, right? They wanted like a clean DREAM Act. They didn't have anything else added in there. Because Trump wanted something like provisions for the wall or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Trump had basically said, I want provisions for the wall, a budget for internal security, because we know that a lot of illegal immigration is here because of visa overstays. So we have to have those measures. We have to have the wall to prevent more people from coming in so that we don't have this situation that we have now, where we have people who are raised in America, but they weren't necessarily born in America. But they don't want to make any of those corrections or changes. They say, quote, we are on the right side of history, so we shouldn't have to compromise. And thus, no DREAM Act has come to fruition.
It definitely seems spoiled. And we haven't really heard much about the DREAM Act recently. That's not been the subject of the news this past week or two. Do you think the media has forgot about it?
Well, you know, it didn't get as much play as it would have because of the fact that recently a California judge and a New York judge decided that they were going to put a halt on President Trump's deadline for DACA, which we know that Trump gave a 6-month time period for Democrats and Republicans to come together to create a DREAM Act. Well, that deadline was March 5th. So just a couple days ago, that deadline came up. We would have started to see DACA dreamers not have their permits renewed. Well, these judges halted Trump's executive order, and the Trump administration has until June to try to appeal that. So as of now, lower court judges are acting on those higher judges' rulings and renewing the visa stays for the work permits for DACA kids. So the reason why this deadline didn't have as much oomph is because the Democrats essentially defanged it.
By use of the courts.
By use of their judges. That's what they like to do. We've seen this many times.
Well, the Ninth Circuit judges, yeah, they're constantly using that to overturn things. Trump's travel ban, which was not a Muslim ban. They tried to call that a Muslim ban, and they had these various courts overturn it because it was, you know, it's apparently racist to say we don't want to have people come into the country from other countries where they don't even have passports. They have no systems of record keeping. That's apparently a U.S. problem.
That's racist to want to have a safe country, to not want to have to walk down the street worried that somebody's going to run you down in a bus or a truck, or that you're going to have another bomb go off, as we've seen in many instances.
New York City.
That's right.
All over Europe. Right. So we've seen that happening over and over again. So what would you like to talk about for the next hour here on the War Room?
Well, right when we come back, we should touch on the fact that currently, right now in California, they do have an active shooter situation in California at a veterans home. So we're going to be giving you guys details on that on the other side of this break.
Stick with us. You're watching the War Room. I'm Michael Zimmerman, joined by Millie Weaver. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to the War Room. I'm Michael Zimmerman, joined by Millie Weaver. As we talked to you earlier, or told you earlier, there's an armed man who took hostages at a veterans home in California. Millie, you've got some more information on that you wanted to share.
Yes. So, Michael, right now this is in Napa Valley. It's in Yountville, California. And currently this veterans home houses about 1,000 retired veterans, which the police are saying that they have removed all of the residents. They have evacuated the veterans home. Currently, right now, there are 3 hostages who are being held hostage. And as of yet, the police have had a press conference, and they have said that they are not aware of any injuries in this matter. However, the fact that this shooter or person has 3 people hostage, you still have a big standoff between the FBI, SWAT, and family members of those people, as well as the residents who have all been evacuated from this facility. We haven't heard too much on who this person is. They've given a brief description saying the guy was about 5'6" in height, and that he did exchange gunfire with the police. But that's all we really know so far.
It's a very interesting case to me. Like I can kind of see, you know, someone at these schools snapping and these school shootings, whether someone who's a loner or bullied, but going to this veterans home out in the countryside, it looks like. I mean, it's Napa Valley. We were just showing some shots of it in an article, and it looks like this beautiful place, kind of out in the country, to go and then take people hostage. It doesn't really fit the profile with a lot of the mass shootings that we've seen before. You know, someone walks in and just opens fire on a room full of people. Instead, taking hostages They did say in this article, unloading up to 30 shots in the housing complex. So that's interesting, and I'm sure we'll have a lot on Monday's show, because more details will emerge about this event and about the shooting.
More details will definitely come out, but notice how the liberal media, a lot of the liberal media has been jumping on this so far, saying it's another active shooter situation, which of course I repeated their headlines when I first told you guys about this. However, it's very different from the typical shooter situations or active shooter situations that we've seen before. Obviously, this person holding people hostage, they're not trying necessarily to go on a rampage and kill as many people as possible, which we typically see with these shooter situations. However, this person's holding people hostage, so it makes me kind of wonder, Michael, do you think that this has to do with mental illness? Do you think that somebody might have snapped within the facility? Because I know that, you know, a lot of the veterans are, you know, they have PTSD, and I'm sure the media is going to jump right all on them, to attack their Second Amendment rights. We know that the liberals love the idea of disarming our veterans, and so they would want to use the example of one or two veterans who might have mental health problems to try to disarm the entire veteran populace, which we all know is ridiculous. And it's exactly the same with them trying to disarm us, the civilian population.
And the veterans are pretty large segment of the U.S. population too. I mean, there are a lot of veterans out there, and you've done reports in California before about just the notoriously poor treatment of veterans, especially in California. When we were in L.A. last year covering the rampant pedophilia going on in Hollywood, you and Gavin pointed out this area that you were saying they took away from the veterans.
That's right. We actually did a huge documentary on the Los Angeles Veterans Home, which had a large piece of property deeded to them. And this property was essentially usurped by the Democrat politicians in power, and essentially barely any veterans were actually being housed on it. In fact, many of the buildings were being rented out for $1 a year for big studios, and a lot of the buildings were left to be dilapidated. They had lots that, you know, the neighboring Beverly Hills school could have for their baseball fields. They had, I mean, they just completely exploited this property, and the amount of veterans that were homeless on the streets, literally sleeping outside the gates, because they literally built gates around the veterans home in Los Angeles to keep the veterans that are homeless from sleeping in the veterans park on that land. I mean, it used to be, this is how the veterans home was utilized in California before you got a bunch of Democrats. Remember, California was Republican. The way it was utilized was you actually had many of the buildings being there housing veterans. You had gardens where veterans grow food for each other. I mean, it was a full-on thriving community. Okay, this veterans home. Democrats get in. Boom, they put big gates to lock the veterans out. They're all homeless on the streets. They already have a homeless crisis in California. We've seen that. I mean, you saw that when we were down there.
Of course, there's poop maps. I went on 2 weeks ago, actually, this week, because I, in the past, have tried to get out of town for South by Southwest because of just how much a nightmare this city turns into during those weeks. Last year, I went to Colorado for a week. The week before, year before, I went to California for a week, and I was staying in the Bay Area. And there are now human feces maps because people will just pull their pants down and poop in the streets.
It's so unsanitary. This is what you get when you have sanctuary cities. This is what you get when you elect liberals. What happens? Well, we've seen it a million times, guys. The Democrats, they leave the city after it's gone to rot. That's like the end of the cycle. What happens? The Democrats are now coming to Austin because Austin has a booming, thriving economy for businesses. Why? Because of policies that Republicans put into place there. So then they're going to bring all their Democrats there, get their Democrats into office, change the rules. It becomes an SHIT hole where you're seeing these poop maps like in California and even in Denver. I mean, it's getting out of hand.
Right, Michael. And that was another video that you and Gavin shot while you were out of town about poop on the streets in Denver. And you put fake poop there, and it's like, oh, don't step in that. Because it would not be surprising to actually step and poop on some of these city streets. Here's an article from the Orange County Register. Thousands of pounds of human waste and close to 14,000 hypodermic needles cleaned out from Santa Ana River homeless encampments. This has become such a problem in LA and the surrounding areas that, like you said, the veterans are part of it, but there's this much bigger issue with homelessness, and it's because of the policies put in place by these local governments and by the state governments. 14,000 hypodermic needles. Well, California, as you know, has this program where they'll give people free clean needles. Well, I wish the people who are choosing to ruin their lives by shooting up heroin would at least dispose of their needles somewhere instead of just throwing them on the streets.
Not to mention when there's a hepatitis outbreak.
Right. First, they're going to ruin their own lives, and then they're going to ruin other people's lives. I mean,
it's
these
really
places
bad.
have issues. It's comes down, I think, to just the decline of society.
Well, I really feel like if we want to wake up a lot of liberals and Democrats out there, we really just need to point the finger and the camera at the destruction and the dilapidation that's going on inside their own democratic cities. Just like in Denver, I mean, Denver has started to become a blue state because you've had a lot of liberals all moving there for the legalization of marijuana, which, you know, has its pros and cons. But sure enough, you get these Democrat mayors in that then decide that they're going to lessen the penalty for public urination and defecation to make life easier for the homeless and immigrant populations that are living on the streets in Denver. Because why? Because Denver declared itself a sanctuary city. And the fact that Denver doesn't even offer public restrooms really in their parks. They don't. Everyone said there is a public restroom shortage here, and they haven't even put one in place. So we have to ask ourselves, why is it that the Democrats' solution is lower the penalty for public urination and defecation, which is a health and safety hazard? Their solution is, no, instead, let's not put in a public restroom. Let's not do the common sense of not creating it into a big sanctuary city. Let's invite all the homelessness, invite all the illegal immigrants on the street, and then tell them that they won't even be punished for pooping and peeing.
Well, and these are the same kind of areas. Here's a quick last one in this segment. Bay Area coffee shop won't serve police for the safety of customers. We need the support of actual community to keep this place safe, not the police. So that's the same kind of S-holes. Or Adam Schiff holes, and it literally is a Schiff hole in this case. I mean, it's just making this country fall apart. So stick with us. We'll be right back with the War Room.
Welcome back. I am Millie Weaver, riding shotgun with Michael Zimmerman, and we're going to be talking about liberalism and how it is a mental disorder. That's right. And here's the latest, guys. We have Washington Post, The Atlantic, and other liberal media sites claiming that now the term globalist is actually an anti-Semitic slur. Why? Because Trump jokingly called Gary Cohn a globalist when mentioning how he actually liked Gary despite the fact that he's a globalist. We'll see, of course, the leftists then say, oh, well, globalist is an anti-Semitic slur, which we all know that's completely not true. That's absurd. We've always referred to Hillary Clinton as a globalist, to Obama as a globalist, to George Soros, to many people out there.
Only one of those that you listed is actually Jewish. But he also helped round people up for the Nazis and called it the best times of his life. So George Soros, whatever his credibility is there. No, it is ridiculous. And when we're talking about globalism, we're talking about global government. We're talking about wanting, open borders. We're talking about, basically wanting a one world government. Globalists are people who, globalism is a group of ideologies that advocate the concept of globalization.
Yeah, the actual term on Wikipedia says it's a group of ideologies that advocate the concept of globalization. Oh, gee, that couldn't be what Alex Jones and all of us are talking about. When we talk about the globalists, you mean these big elitists that want to come together, that want to create this new world order, who are from, all members of sex and nationality and race,
religious
which
backgrounds.
We've seen, religious backgrounds, etc. However, this is an interesting one. Wikipedia actually created a new page just in February called New Anti-Semitism. Now, this is interesting. New anti-Semitism, what is that? Well, liberals are always creating new terms. Well, they say that right-wing groups refer to Jewish people as globalists as a way of demeaning them or as a slur. They say that that essentially this is racism. So now all of these old videos of Alex and us talking about the globalists, the undiscerning liberal who reads Washington Post is going to think and look at that and say, wow, look at them, they're anti-Semites.
Right. Well, and we actually had a conversation about this when you and Gavin got back today, because you guys were out of town when the whole fake news EEOC claim dropped. And in there, it was claimed that I was anti-Semitic, but as you know, we've traveled to California. You guys know I have always talked about, I'm actually a big supporter of Israel to the point of getting called a Zionist shill. I'm sure I'll get called a Zionist shill in the comments of this video because I support Israel. No, if I'm talking about globalization, it's not anti-Semitism or whatever other trumped up thing people can come up with. It's really like
listen to this.
This is how you lose arguments. Is you make people you shift the window so far so that everything is hate speech, everything is offensive, to the point where it's like people don't take you seriously. You cried wolf like too many times here.
The liberals are redefining words and terms and creating new terms so that essentially you have leftists speaking one language and then other people who are normal members of society speaking a completely normal language, which we all know, but then the leftists see they now interpret things as racist when the person has no intention of it having anything to do with race, and the term originally had nothing to do with race. Now listen to this from the Washington Post. This is their quote on this. Globalist is frequently deployed in far-right and conspiracy theory-minded circles on the internet as a Jewish slur. That's from Washington Post, guy. This is what they're putting in leftist minds. The Atlantic says it's an epithet that is disproportionately directed at a particular minority group, just as thug is used to stereotype African Americans. Globalist is used to stereotype Jewish people. Give me a break. When we've always talked about, yes, this is a minority group that we talk about when we say globalists. However, wrong group. We're talking about the elitists, the tiny little percentage of elitists out there, the Obamas, the Hillary Clintons, the sellouts that want to create this new world order, George Bush, the Bushes. Okay, those are the globalists. It has nothing to do with somebody's national origin, race, religion, etc. And all those people who want to say, oh, Trump is anti-Semitic because he said, oh yeah, Gary Cohn is a globalist when he's just calling a spade a spade. That is ridiculous.
Yeah,
not to mention
Trump
the fact
with his Jewish daughter and Jewish grandchildren.
Yeah,
okay,
his Jewish grandchildren. They want to point that same rhetoric, those same lies at InfoWars and all of those who work at InfoWars. There's no point of trying to defend against it because we know that the liberals will just keep on continuing to try to use, oh, you're a racist, oh, you're a bigot, oh, you're homophobic, you're transphobic. This is their only argument. That's all they have, Michael. That's why they use it.
It is, and like I was saying, I think you can wear out these arguments. I think these things can be said too many times where people, hopefully the tide will change and people will stop taking this seriously. Someone should open up, the New York Times or whatever and read, globalist is anti-Semitic, and then do a little research for themselves and go, no, they lied to me. That was fake news. It was another fake news lie. They love trumping these things up and throwing them at people. Actually, guys, do we have the clip of Gary Cohn being called a globalist by Donald Trump? We'll take a quick look at that. You see for yourself if you think this has anti-Semitism in it.
This is Gary Cohn's last meeting in the cabinet and of the cabinet, and he's been terrific. He may be a globalist, but I still like him.
Oh, he's such a bigot.
No
he can't joke around.
In his own way, he's a nationalist because he loves our country. And
he compares and contrasts globalist to nationalist. He's saying globalist, opposite of nationalist. Is nationalist now used as a term for non-Jewish people? Because if you're comparing and contrasting things, these people don't even get how language works. In the sentence Trump just said, the opposite to globalist was nationalist.
That's right.
If they're replacing words now and replacing globalist with Jewish person, Nationalist would be non-Jewish person. Would that fit the sentence that Trump just said? Of course not.
But see, Michael, you're just using basic logic along with common sense. That's something that most liberals do not use. And in fact, I believe that a lot of these leftist outlets are obviously, I mean, it's so obvious, they must be just putting this faulty line of thinking, the fallacies of logic out there because they want their supporters to not be able to actually use logic themselves, because then they could actually see through the lies.
Well, that's what they teach in the universities. They don't encourage individual thought or individual ideas. In the universities, they're teaching people to go with the group collective. They want them to not think for themselves. They want them to, you know, just believe, yes, this is racist. Conservatives are bad. You know, they have this set of beliefs. You have to believe there's 50, 60 different genders. And if you don't believe that, you're an outsider. In the first hour, we were talking about how they're kicking conservatives off of dating apps now. They want you to be alone. They want you to feel like your ideas don't have a place. And I think they've cried wolf too many times, and the tide's going to start to turn on this because the fake news just can't continue. We'll be right back on the other side with the War Room. Welcome back to this Friday edition of the War Room show. I'm Michael Zimmerman, joined by Millie Weaver, who we're very glad to have back here in studio. You've been gone for a couple weeks on the road, filing all kinds of incredible reports, and we're able to do things like that and have excellent reporters like Millie, Jake, everyone who's joined us today as part of the InfoWars crew because of your support. We absolutely need your continued support, and because of that, we are continuing Operation Paul Revere 2018, which actually I have to bring up in the video we showed, that documentary you and Gavin made years ago. That was part of the first Operation Paul Revere. That was your contest entry into that contest. But as part of Operation Paul Revere 2018, we did our 34-hour broadcast at the end of last week, Thursday into Friday. And we're continuing the excellent specials from that broadcast. Almost all the products in our store are discounted by 30 to 80% off. Make sure you get your products now before the sales go back down to what they're usually at. We also are accepting donations. We don't ask for donations very often. Usually we just ask you to try the incredible products because we know once you try them, you're going to come back. But also when you make a donation to InfoWars, 100% of that money goes straight to funding this operation. With the products we have, you know, warehouse shipping, when we do free shipping, everything like that cuts into what is actually able to fund the operation. So if you make a direct donation to us, 100% of that goes to building new studios, to sending crews out on the road, to getting on new platforms like satellite TV, which we've been doing. But in addition to that, we have the incredible products that we want you to try. Many of you have already tried it and continue to reorder, and we thank you for your support. Super Male Vitality and Super Female Vitality are 50% off. The Real Red Pill is 50% off. Biome Defense 50 is 50% off. The True Whey Protein, which Jake Lloyd was talking about, incredible stuff. If you bought protein powder before, you know almost everywhere it costs more than $20 for a canister of the stuff. This incredible, highest quality whey protein is $19.99 right now, 50% off, InfoWarsStore.com. InfoWars Life Select products, 40% off, and some of the clearance apparel, certain shirts, hats, things like that in our clearance apparel is 80% off. And here's our shirt of the month, number 3, When Tyranny Becomes a Law. It's 1776 on the sides, at 3% or 3 in the middle. And it says, when tyranny becomes the law, rebellion becomes duty at the bottom. So you order that. That's the shirt of the month for the next 21 days. And so we do a new design every month. You can also sign up for auto ship with the shirt of the month club and get an incredible new shirt from InfoWars monthly, which I have to say, probably half of my t-shirts or more at home are all InfoWars shirts because I love wearing them out. I love wearing them in public. I know you and Gavin do that too. You've got your InfoWars shirts on.
Good shirts to wear for pajamas for girls. I really like wearing them.
They're great quality t-shirts. And when you buy from us, you support the good guys. You're supporting the InfoWar and allowing us to continue what we do. So in our final segment of the War Room that's coming up, we had callers call in yesterday. Owen and Rob Dew both asked in the War Room show and the Alex Jones show for people who work in the steel industry to call into the show and to say, you know, what their experience is. These are the people who know it best, not bureaucrats in Washington. So they reached out to people who are in the steel industry and said, you know, or aluminum, call in and let us know, you know, what it's like. Do you think you're going to be going back to work? Do you think you're going to be employed full time again? So we're going to be running that in our final segment. But I just wanted to get through a couple more news articles that we'll get through in the 5 minutes or so that we have remaining in this.
Well, Michael, I will touch on this. What I've seen following these tariffs for steel and aluminum, and Trump talking of them, I've noticed that many of my liberal family members and people that I know all seem to be actually approving of this. I've seen a high rate of approval for this move that Trump's making across the board between Republicans and liberals. Some of the first times I've actually seen some very adamant anti-Trump people that I've known my whole life all of a sudden switch and say, hey, I actually like this. I actually think this is going to help America. So that has been pretty shocking here. And I've also seen a lot of approval surrounding his ability to get Kim Jong-un to want to come to the table to talk.
Which that's incredible. That's a point I made earlier in the show, is that in the entire 8 years of the Obama administration, I don't think we saw very many improvements when it came to U.S. and North Korea relations. It was tense the entire time. The first year of Trump's presidency, things were pretty tense. We saw all these test missile launches. They were announcing we now have missiles that can hit the United States. I mean, there's some concerning stuff that came out from North Korea, but now we see Trump remain strong, you know, and his stance on North Korea. Now they're willing to come to the table.
It's been about 20 years between the time period of a U.S. president and a North Korean dictator, president, whatever you want to call it, coming to the table to actually talk and sit down and have discussions. So it has been a long time. A lot of times before that, U.S. presidents like Obama and the Bushes, they didn't want to validate the North Korean ruler's presence by meeting with them. But I think Trump actually making this move to try to get Kim Jong-un to come to the table is a really, really good deal. But, you know, talking more on the liberal mental disorder that we were really kind of talking about, and how now we're seeing more liberals kind of waking up that, hey, maybe Trump is actually helping things. Here's a little thing that you can ask your family and friends about, and really try to wake up and red pill your liberal friends. That is basically, hey, why is it that you have leftists pushing for gun control while at the same time believing and claiming that Trump is the next literal Hitler? So if you think, if you actually can hold those two thoughts, you're in your liberal mindset and say, hey, I think that we should disarm everyone in the public, turn them all in, give up all of our guns. Well, hey, isn't that what happened before Hitler really, you know, did the Holocaust? You know, the German people, they were disarmed. So if you really believed Trump was Hitler, why would you then advocate for gun control? Another really good contradiction that liberals hold in their minds is they all hate the police. They don't trust the police. They say the cops are pigs. They say that they don't trust them, that they target African Americans. We've seen that strongly with the Black Lives Matter movement. So if they don't trust the police, they don't trust their authority, once again, you're going to want to disarm the American people and the public and only have the police having firearms. So liberals can hold these conflicting ideas in their head and push for these policies and not even have those two cross and say, hey, why am I believing this?
So we actually have some breaking news here. So the NRA files, and that's a very good point, Millie. You know, these people are totalitarians. That's why they want this. So the NRA files federal lawsuit over Florida legislation that raises minimum age to buy guns. Of course, this will be through the NRA-ILA, Institute for Legislative Action. It's another division of the National Rifle Association, which focuses mainly on engagement. Also, the NRA, one of their biggest programs is gun safety. But it's good to see them filing a lawsuit against the state of Florida, just like people are suing Walmart and Dick's over not selling guns to people under 21. If you are 18 years of age, you are legally allowed to own a rifle in this country. And we can have the discussion of what can we better do to have some warning signs about people with mental health issues.
So you can be drafted and have to go off to war and die to protect your country.
I am signed up for the draft. Yeah, I'm 23. I signed up at 18.
Unless you're 21? No, that's not going to hold. That dog don't hunt, okay?
Nope.
And so they have every right to file suit. What part of shall not be infringed do you liberals not get? What part of it? It's our Constitution. It is what limits our government. It's not necessarily our right. It is the restrictions on our government.
Right.
Our government does not have the right to tell us you cannot have a firearm until you're 21. It doesn't.
Government didn't give you those rights in the first place. Those are God-given rights to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. You know, protecting yourself. Self-defense is your right, not because government gave it to you. Government doesn't give things; it takes things away. You have those rights because they're innate rights. So, on the other side of this break, we're going to be playing 10 minutes or so in the final segment of these steel workers, people who are finally getting back to work. We've seen all these jobs, you know, come back into this country, manufacturing jobs. Really great times ahead for this country economically. Thanks for joining us on The War Room. Michael Zimmerman, joined by Millie Weaver. We will be back Monday morning with David Knight at 8 a.m. And then Alex Jones will be back on Monday also. Thank you for watching.
Infowars.com/show.
We will be calling back 500 employees. This feels like the beginning of a renaissance for us. We're finally doing the right thing for American workers after decades of unfairly traded steel into the United States. So we're really happy and delighted to share with everybody that we're getting back on track after so many years.
Are you a steel worker? Are you a steel worker in Ohio? Are you a steel worker in Pennsylvania? Have you worked in the steel plants before? Have you seen the steel plants get shut down? Now are you seeing them come back? So I want to hear specifically from people in steel country, from people that manufacture steel and aluminum. What do you think about this? Are you seeing the rejuvenation of American manufacturing? Are you seeing the steel industry coming back? Scott, calling in from Indiana, works at U.S. Steel. We heard from the CEO of U.S. Steel crediting Trump with delivering. Scott, what do you think about President Trump and the tariffs bringing steel manufacturing back to America?
Good afternoon, Owen. How you doing? I appreciate what you guys are doing. You know, you guys are standing up for everybody, and you're the tip of the spear. Thank you guys, the whole crew, for what you do. Yeah, I think it's going to be a good thing. I think it's been long overdue. You know, things have been shutting down. Our sister plant in Granite City, Illinois, I've known people from that plant, and it basically shut down that whole community when that plant went down.
Well, I can tell you, I'm from St. Louis. Granite City is just on the other side of the river. A member of the crew here lived on the ill side, and we were actually talking about that at one of the breaks. There used to be all types of manufacturing lining the Mississippi River in St. Louis, in Granite City, in Belleville, and it just got all shut down. It just disappeared. And you go down the Mississippi River, whether you're on the ill side or the Mo side, and there's just empty manufacturing plants everywhere. It's terrible.
People don't understand the association of big steel in any community where a mill is located. You've got people that sell fasteners. You've got people that sell office supplies. You've got restaurants, diners that line that area, supermarkets. It's all tied together. The steel mill supports so many other businesses in any community they're in. And when that steel mill is gone, it has a huge impact on any area economy, any small businesses. It's terrible. It's very terrible to see that happen.
You don't have to listen to Scott to know that he's telling the truth. All you have to do is go to the local, the biggest city by you. Go to the inner city by you, whether it's St. Louis or Chicago or Baltimore. You have massive manufacturing plants shut down, empty warehouses, empty buildings, and then that's what Scott's talking about. That brings the poverty. That brings the lack of job opportunity. That brings the lack of growth, and then the homelessness, and then the rest of the degradation that comes with it.
Well, what happened, us up here in Northwest Indiana, we're kind of the flagship of the U.S. Steel Corporation. So when they started shutting down, you know, it's like you start shutting down things to keep the main body alive. We've been running pretty strong up here in Northwest Indiana. We really haven't missed a beat. But, again, they were shutting down Granite City. They shut down our tubular plants in Lorain, Ohio. At Fairfield, Alabama, they shut down a blast furnace in Fairfield, Alabama. That one doesn't get the press. Fairfield is all but gone. You had Texas Lone Star Tubular. U.S. Steel owns that, and since the gas prices are doing what they're doing, the tubular business is in the toilet. So there's been a lot of other exterior facilities facilities that have been shut down, but we've been running pretty strong here in Northwest Indiana. But they're going to expect us to run even harder now. You know, when we here in Northwest Indiana, at one time, our plant, just this plant, employed 27,000 people. We are down to 4,000 people.
Now, do you expect that number to go back up now?
Yes, they are in the process of hiring as we speak.
Wow, so more jobs, more job opportunities, more work, and it looks like this is Trump delivering on bringing manufacturing, specifically in the steel industry, back to America. Thank you so much for the call, Scott. We now go out to Ohio, where Matt calls in. He also works at a steel mill. Go ahead, Matt.
Hi, Owen. Also want to hit a quick plug. I take DNA Force. I thank you guys for that. It's a great product, works great. Hi, Leanne. I actually did work in steel industry and steel country. My dad spent 16 years at Ormet aluminum plant. I was at Ormet with him and then went to Wheeling Pittsburgh Steel, and a job that I thought I'd have for life. The tariffs actually shut them down. And now, since Trump's been in, that mill has opened back up. They might do more hiring. They're hoping to open the whole thing up now that the tariffs actually started to go away. They're actually hoping to expand, and a couple other industries up the Ohio River are starting to open up.
So it sounds to me that the heads of these industries were shutting down and kind of rationing back because they didn't have that confidence in the future market. They didn't think that business opportunity would be there in the future. Now they have that confidence. They see signs of it returning, so they're reopening, and they're actually getting the jobs back.
Yes, it's the same way with after the steel industry. I went underground in the coal mine and hoped to retire there, but Obama, of course, shut that down with the war on coal policy. But now that that's out, the coal industry now around here, because we border West Virginia, we're right across the river, the coal country and steel country in the same place, and they're both now just booming because it shut the economy down. It shut the towns down that I lived in and grew up in. It's a completely different place.
Do you expect this trend of more steel jobs, more steel manufacturing to continue here in America?
Yes, I do. I think it's going to prosper great, and I'm thankful for Trump for that.
Let's go to Mark, who is from the steel industry out in Atlanta. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, hey, Owen. Hey, listen, I just wanted to make the point that domestically produced steel is a strategic asset for any country. And it was the steel industry here in America that actually won World War II. And I think it's a possibility Trump may be preparing this country for maybe a war with China.
You know what? This is actually an excellent caller right here. Now, I'm actually recalling, too, not only did U.S. Steel manufacture during the war for the American army, but also for the Nazis, I think for the Italians, and I think for like almost everyone involved in the war, U.S. Steel was being used to manufacture their weapons. So, yeah, that's an interesting point. Bringing the steel back to America to give more leverage to the United States if the terrible situation of a war broke out.
Right. Good point.
Anything else, Mark?
So, yeah, please remember that Japan, Japan was building aircraft out of wood because of their lack of raw, resources to make steel. And it was, then the fact that Japan was an island and already had to import all their raw materials for their steel industry. But as we cut those materials off, that was one of the things that helped us win World War II. So my point is, domestic steel production is an essential, item if you're looking at a war with, even a minor war.
Yeah, and it's a total asset. Think about it. If your enemy wanted to cripple you and handicap you in the time of war, what they would do? They would shut down the steel manufacturing.
Right.
You can't build tanks out of alloys. It has to be steel.
Now let's go to Rob in Indiana. He's been working in the steel industry for almost 3 decades. Go ahead, Rob.
What I'm going to get at here is the media is not talking about the fact that we've been assaulted with what's called dump steel for the last 30 to 40 years. And what that means is that producers, other countries, they're actually making the steel. They're selling it below the cost of what it costs them to make the product. And then they are being reimbursed by their country for the difference. So they don't lose anything But what they do is they undercut our market, which messes us up. So
that's kind of like China. So that's kind of like China manipulating their currency.
That's exactly what they're doing. It's called illegal dump steel. They've been doing it. We've been fighting it forever. And it's finally amazing to see a Republican president stand up and do something, and actually does what he says he's going to do. Everyone else has all been talk, and all the unions and all these steel industries, we all support them, but they never follow through. And it's so refreshing to have Trump actually do what he's going to say what he's going to do, and just do it.
Well,
but
Rob,
the thing is what upsets me.
It says here you've been working in the steel industry for almost 3 decades. I mean, these are some of the toughest workers in the union here. I mean, what have you seen in the steel industry just since Trump's been elected?
Well, I tell you what I've seen is just a huge push. We're actually almost running at capacity right now.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing.
Yeah, we are.
Where 2 years ago, it was like you could hardly even get work.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's true, and we're hiring now. We've had a dry spell with hiring for the last 2 to 3, 4 years. Now we're hiring. We can't get enough people, so it's nice. It's good for our economy, and these are good paying jobs. But what people fail to realize is everything out here tries to kill us. And when you work in the steel industry, everything is trying to get you. Even the air you breathe is toxic. So I mean, it's not a fun place to work by any means, but it's what we do.
And it's the backbone of the country. I mean, exactly.
Nourish a probiotic-friendly environment in your gut with prebiotic fiber by InfoWars Life. Help the good bacteria thrive and support overall digestive health with our specially formulated prebiotic fiber, a mixture of clinically studied and organic acacia, fruit, and flax fiber. Prebiotic fiber is soluble fiber that ferments in the gut to help feed good bacteria, which helps you digest food, absorb nutrients, and even supports your immune system. InfoWars Life's cutting-edge formula only brings you the highest quality, organic, and clinically studied ingredients. Cheap prebiotic fibers are used up only at the beginning of the colon, but our premium organic acacia fiber is slowly digested by the good bacteria throughout the entire colon for maximum prebiotic effect. Head to InfoWarsLife.com or call 1-888-253-3139.
Make no mistake, we've made some major gains against the globalists, but they're striking back all over the world. Now more than ever is the time to get prepared with the highest quality emergency supplies across the board. Medical supplies, emergency supplies, communications, tactical, it's all there, and we're adding more and more every day of the very best products out there. So go to fortifiedsupply.com today to not just see the great products we offer there, but links to some of the other great sponsors that we have as well. That's fortifiedsupply.com. We've taken Brain Force and made it Brain Force Plus. Now a 20% more in the bottle and an even more hardcore formula. You owe it to yourself to get these products. They really have worked for myself, my family. They have 5-star reviews by the thousands. InfoWarsLife.com.